Chapter 1426. High-grade, unending level techniques were extremely precious, even in the demigod colleges. When long you had participated in the auction of the demigod colleges, someone had put up a low-grade, unending level technique for sale, which had been sold for 12 million battlefield merit points. Now, Long Yu Starlight of the Nine Heavens was a high-grade, unending level technique, which was worth more than 10 times that of a low-grade, unending level technique. It was no wonder why Moon Song felt a little embarrassed. She didn't know Long Yu very well, yet Long Yu had actually given this martial skill to her practice. Clearly, it was because they were going to be fighting together in the upcoming battle. Moon Song's eyes lit up. The stronger she was, the more help she could provide to the team. That way, the team would be able to overcome difficulties and complete one trial after another in the colleges. This jade chip is not a gift. It's only for your temporary training. You'll have to return it to me when the academic year of the demigods is over. By then, it will be up to you to see how far you can go. Long Yu smiled at Moon Song. Moon Song nodded and smiled. Yes, I understand. Even if I'm just borrowing it, it's still very precious to me. High-grade, unending level techniques are something that few people in the entire demigod colleges can repair. Long Yu knew a little about this. Even demigod experts might not be able to cultivate high-grade, unending level techniques. For example, Jiyo Dragon Emperor hadn't been able to cultivate more than 2 unending level techniques. Of course, that was partly because Jiyo Dragon Emperor was picky, but it also showed how precious unending level techniques were. Long Yu had given Moon Song 2 high-grade, unending level techniques, Demon Shadow Restraint and Starlight of the Nine Heavens. However, they probably wouldn't be effective in the short term. After all, cultivating high-grade, unending level techniques require a lot of time. Even with Long Yu's special training, it had taken him several months to bring the unbounded grasp and the warring heavenly body frenzy to the transcendent level. That was especially true for Moon Song, who would definitely put all her effort into cultivating the technique. After all, she wouldn't be able to keep the jade slip forever. She would have to return it to Long Yu in about 8 months. She would definitely work hard to cultivate the 9 firmaments star flash to the transcendent state in this period of time. Let's go. Red Oriole, I'll leave it to you to find traces of that abyss race creature. Long Yu said to Red Oriole. He then glanced at his surroundings. In the endless void, starlight flickered. In the battlefield of the outsiders, endless dangers lurked. Red Oriole nodded and began to gather the power of divination in her hand. Just like in the previous training mission, they had obtained an item that contained the aura of the abyss race creature. Using this item, they could perform divination on the abyss race creature. Whether it was its condition or its location, as long as they had enough power of divination, they would be able to find it. Because Red Oriole had practiced the secret martial arts of the Blood Demon clan, her deduction ability was much stronger than that of ordinary martial cultivators of the same level. However, at this moment, her deduction was like a stone sinking into the ocean. She received no effect at all. Obviously, either the Abyss Race Assassin was very far away, or the Abyss Race Assassin had a very strong ability to block deductions. Either way, it wasn't a good sign for the 3 of them. But in terms of divination, Long Yu and Moon Song couldn't help much. When Red Oriole performed her divination, Long Yu and Moon Song could only protect her from the side. They couldn't do anything else. Red Oriole frowned. It seemed that there was no news. But very soon, a hint of joy appeared on her face. There's some movement. Although we can't find the enemy's location or any other information, we can follow the clues and find out which area the enemy is in. As Red Oriole spoke, she used a special technique. This special technique was derived from the Blood Demon race's secret martial arts technique after she had cultivated it to the peak of the 9th level. For example, the Balanced Light strengthened the secret martial arts technique, Balance Control. After Red Oriole performed this special technique, her divination ability was immediately increased by 10 times. The 10 times stronger divination ability made Red Oriole, who was already very good at divination, even more shrewd. Her power of divination was like an ancient torrent, pouring into the abyss race creature she was deducing. Originally, Red Oriole had already found some information about the creature. Now that her divination ability was increased by 10 times, although it consumed all of Red Oriole's power of divination, it allowed her to clearly capture the location of the Abyss race creature. It's more than 10 million kilometers away. It's flying toward human territory. This Abyss race creature is a 5th phase sovereign. Its combat ability must be very strong. Be careful. Red Oriole immediately said to Long Yu and Moonsong when she received this information. The two nodded. Moonsong was quite experienced. After receiving this information, she said, "The physical body of the Abyss race is made of metal and is extremely strong. The assassins of the Abyss race completely rely on their physical strength, so don't fight them head-on. Forget about the physical bodies of 5th phase sovereigns. Even a 3rd phase sovereigns of the Abyss race has a much stronger physical body than us." Moonsong had fought against the Abyss race before, so she was very cautious about this. Similarly, Long Yu, who had fought against the Abyss race before, knew that the Abyss race was a foreign race that came from the Abyss. They didn't have a territory in the Great World, so they always wanted to invade the territories of other races. Although he didn't know what kind of assassination mission this Abyss race assassin had, Long Yu definitely couldn't let the other party take one step closer to human territory. "Be careful," Red Oriole said gravely. Red Oriole said gravely, "My deduction abilities have been exhausted, so the Abyss race will most likely change locations during this period of time. As for which direction, we have no idea. Since we can't always keep track of its movements, we must act quickly. At the very least, let's go take a look nearby. My martial realm is the lowest, so I can go there and try to lure it out." Long Yu said, Then we will enter the inner space of Little Void. If you encounter any danger, we will immediately appear." Red Oriole nodded. She already understood what Long Yu was thinking. After all, the two of them had fought together many times, so they had some understanding of each other's thinking. Now that Long Yu had the Void Dark Dragon Blade, his speed was obviously the fastest. Moreover, Long Yu's life-saving abilities were also very strong, so there wouldn't be any problems for him to act as bait. Most importantly, the opponent was an Abyss race assassin with an extremely strong physical body. Therefore, there was no way the assassin would have any other ability that could kill Long Yu. After all, Long Yu had the Book of Shadows' divine ability, as well as all sorts of other methods to break free from physical attacks. Moonsong didn't know Long Yu that well. She was a little surprised by Long Yu and Red Oriole's battle plan. So Long Yu was going to be bait to lure the Abyss race assassin? But no matter what, Moonsong trusted Long Yu and Red Oriole very much. She had worked together with Red Oriole for more than 3 months, so she was very clear about Red Oriole's strength. This was especially true after Red Oriole became a 3rd phase Great Ruler. Her strength was almost on par with Moonsong's. When dealing with foreign races, Red Oriole was just as useful as Moonsong. After working together in many battles, Moonsong didn't doubt the two's battle plan. She followed Red Oriole and entered the inner space of the Void Dark Dragon Blade. Then they passed through the Void. Water-type absolute beginning power enveloped the entire Void Dark Dragon Blade. Then it carried Long Yu and the other 2 tens of thousands of kilometers away. Long Yu's strength had increased, and his compatibility with the Void Dark Dragon Blade had reached a higher level. The distance the Void Dark Dragon Blade could travel through the void had reached a new limit. A single jump covered 3 million kilometers. The distance between them and the Abyss race assassin was only 10 million kilometers. Long Yu only needed to jump 3 or 4 times to reach that place. No matter how fast the other party was, it couldn't have gotten very far in such a short amount of time. As long as Long Yu appeared in the other party's perception range, would the Abyss race assassin take the initiative to attack and kill Long Yu? Long Yu didn't know what the other party's objective was, nor did he know what the other party's personality was like. In any case, he had to get to that place first. Even if the other party wasn't willing to show up, Red Oriole could use this time to quickly replenish the deduction power she had expended. Once they got there would definitely be more of the Abyss Race Assassin's aura. She would be able to more easily deduce the other party's current location. With 4 leaps, Long Yu traversed a distance of 3 million miles each time. After 4 leaps, Long Yu appeared in another part of the void with a nether void dragon blade. As soon as he arrived, he felt a somewhat familiar aura. This was the aura of the Abyss Race's metal body. Clearly, the Abyss Race Assassin had stayed here for a while. Perhaps Red Oriole's powerful deduction power had made it stay here for a while. But now, when Long Yu arrived, he didn't see any traces of the Abyss Race Assassin. Long Yu waited for a while, but nothing else happened. The Abyss Race Assassin seemed to have completely left this place. Red Oriole and Moon Song were slightly disappointed when they saw this. They wanted to come out of the Void Dark Dragon Blade, but Long Yu stopped them. Wait a little longer. Maybe it's still confirming the situation. Long Yu said to the 2 girls, and then he pretended to search alone in the same place. If there were more people, the Abyss Race Assassin might not appear. But now, Long Yu pretended to be alone. The Abyss Race Assassin might not be able to control himself and attack Long Yu. Chapter 14:27. Long Yu continued to wait in the void. Red Oriole and Moon Song didn't come out of the void Nether Dragon Blade for now. They wanted to wait for a while. In any case, Red Oriole's power hadn't completely recovered yet. Once she recovered enough to perform another divination, she should be able to come out and continue divining the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts. Long Yu waited for a while. When he discovered that there was no movement around him, he wasn't in a hurry. In any case, he was certain that the Abyss Race Assassin's speed wasn't as fast as his Void Nether Dragon Blade. Since that was the case, even if the Abyss Race Assassin didn't take the bait and attack him, he could wait for Red Oriole to recover and continue divining the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts. In any case, he was faster than the Abyss Race Assassin. This way, he would catch up to the Abyss Race Assassin sooner or later. After about an incense stick's worth of time, there was still no movement around him. Red Oriole's power had more or less recovered. At this time, Long Yu could only disappointedly give up on the idea of luring the Abyss Race Assassin out. It seems that this Abyss Race Assassin is very stubborn about his mission. Even after seeing a human minion like me, he didn't kill me. He's too cautious. Long Yu sighed and shook his head. Red Oriole, however, laughed. Don't feel too bad. Think about it. If you were to carry out a mission in foreign race's territory, apart from completing the mission, what else would you do? Even if he killed an insignificant minion, it was very likely that he would expose himself. Because of it, that's not worth it. You're right. I was thinking too much. Since that's the case, I can only rely on you to divine the Abyss Race Assassin's location. Long Yu scratched his head. Then, Red Oriole flew out of the void Nether Dragon Blade space. As for Moon Song, she didn't appear for now. Right now, she could act as a trump card and hide. During the pursuit, only Long Yu and Red Oriole could appear. After catching up, there would inevitably be a battle. At that time, Moon Song's sudden appearance would definitely catch the Abyss Tribe Assassin off guard. Even if she couldn't kill him directly, she could at least disrupt his formation and put him at a disadvantage in the following battle. Red Oriole's deduction power surged again and fell on the Abyss Race Assassin's body across the endless void. This time, the result was even faster. Red Oriole hadn't used all of her deduction power yet. Because the Nether Void Dragon Blade was very fast, it didn't take long for it to arrive. Even though the Abyss Race kept teleporting, it was only 4 million miles away. From this point of view, the speed of the Netherworld Dragon Blade was 3 times that of the opponent. Since that was the case, Long Yu was relieved. The closer the distance, the easier it would be for Red Oriole to deduce her opponent's position, and the less time she would have to escape. Chase! Long Yu laughed and entered the Nether Void Dragon Blade's inner space again. He told Little Void to use Void Traverse and traverse 3 million miles in one go. After another traverse, they traversed 1 million miles in the void and arrived at the location that Red Oriole had deduced. It was obvious that the opponent was approaching the human race's territory. However, This place was quite far away from the outer galaxies, so he didn't know who the Abyss Race Assassin's target was. But thinking about it, a fifth phase ruler Abyss Race Assassin shouldn't be able to kill an important person of a human race, no matter what. Long Yu's goal was to kill him. After catching up to the opponent's position again, Long Yu discovered that the void was still quiet. Nothing appeared in his field of vision. Red Oriole continued the deduction. Since he didn't see anyone, he continued the deduction. At the same time, Long Yu made 100% preparations. If the Abyss Race Assassin appeared nearby, he would be able to react immediately. The Balance Control secret art was also fully activated. The Balanced Light buffed himself and Red Oriole, increasing their spiritual sense perception by 10 times. Red Oriole came out of the Nether Void Dragon Blade's inner space and began to deduce the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts. Her deduction power gathered. If the situation was normal, she should be able to deduce the opponent's whereabouts in a few breaths. After all, the opponent had only teleported 1,000,000 miles away in a short time. Deducing his whereabouts was even easier. Long Yu was on high alert while Red Oriole continued to deduce. Found him careful. Red Oriole suddenly screamed. She had deduced the Abyss Race Assassin's whereabouts, but the position he was in gave her a fright. The position she had deduced was behind her, in other words, in front of Long Yu. The Abyss Race Assassin was hiding next to Long Yu and Red Oriole. This situation gave Red Oriole a fright. Just as she screamed, a low grunt came from behind her. That grunt came from Long Yu. At the same time that Red Oriole screamed, a black shadow suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Without giving Long Yu any time to react, Long Yu's entire body was sent flying. His physical body was completely smashed to pieces. The reason Long Yu was able to groan was because his physical body was relatively strong. The Abyss Tribe Assassin had appeared too close. Even Long Yu, who had been on guard all this time, hadn't expected the other party to appear right next to him. As if discovering that Long Yu was the fastest to catch up to him, the Abyss Race Assassin attacked first, choosing to deal with Long Yu. It could be said that he was going to kill him in one hit. The fleshly body of the Abyss Race was too strong. In a head-on collision, Long Yu had no chance of winning. It wasn't strange for an Abyss Race Assassin to be killed in a single strike. That pile of flesh floated in the air just like that. The Abyss Race Assassin did not immediately run after his first hit. Instead, he turned and leapt at Red Oriole. Fortunately, the moment that Long Yu was hit, Red Oriole reacted. Facing the Abyss Race Assassin's attack, Red Oriole's demon blood 6 wings opened. Blood-red light covered her body, and the power of blood-red, divine characters gathered to form a blood-red shield. This blood-red shield blocked the Abyss Race Assassin's physical attack. Although the blood-red shield shattered, the Abyss Race Assassin's attack was stopped. This Abyss Race Assassin was similar to the one that Long Yu had seen before. Its entire body glowed with a metallic luster. Sometimes it was black iron, and sometimes it was silver. The steel-like body represented a very strong life force. It would not be easy to kill this Abyss Race Assassin. However, this Abyss Race Assassin revealed one thing. Although Long Yu's physical body had exploded, he was not dead yet. In that pile of flesh, the demon dust heart was still beating, absorbing all kinds of energy around it. It was reconstructing Long Yu's physical body. Moreover, Long Yu used a martial arts secret technique of balance control to hide the energy fluctuations in this pile of flesh. This made it so that the Abyss Race Assassin could not detect that he was regenerating. Fortunately, this opponent was from the Abyss Race. The Abyss Race's physical body was very strong, but whether it was spiritual sense or deduction ability, there was a big gap between them and humans and Yao. Therefore, the Abyss Race Assassin did not detect that Long Yu was reconstructing his physical body, and this also sowed the seeds of its failure. Red Oriole was a third-rank ruler, Yao cultivator. If she was dealing with a normal fifth-rank ruler, she would definitely be able to deal with him easily. It was just like how Long Yu was dealing with a second-rank ruler. However, This Abyss race assassin was clearly not a normal 5th rank ruler. To be sent to a foreign race's territory to carry out an assassination mission, this Abyss race assassin's strength was probably equivalent to a normal 7th rank ruler. Therefore, when Red Oriole faced the Abyss race assassin, she immediately fell into a disadvantage. However, even in this situation, Moon Song did not appear. She knew that even if she appeared now, she would not be able to alleviate Red Oriole's situation. At most, she would be able to delay the Abyss race assassin. She believed that Red Oriole and Long Yu would be able to delay the Abyss race assassin until all of its attention was drawn. When that time came, Moon Song would appear and kill the assassin in one blow. Red Oriole resisted the Abyss race assassin's attacks with difficulty. Blood-colored divine runes continuously danced around her body. Blood-colored whips danced chaotically in the air, continuously lashing at the Abyss race assassin's body. However, the Abyss race assassin's physical body was simply too strong. It did not move an inch, even after enduring a few of Red Oriole's attacks. Moreover, it faced the attacks head-on. It did not even use any defensive moves or techniques. This kind of physical strength was far beyond Red Oriole's expectations. Red Oriole and her younger brother, Red Monarch, had trained in a foreign race's battlefield before, but when had they ever encountered such a powerful Abyss race assassin? For a moment, Red Oriole was stunned. This Abyss race assassin had such a strong physical body. Even if he just stood there and let her kill him, it would take her a long time to kill him. Not to mention, the Abyss race was a foreign race with terrifying regenerative abilities. To them, even if they were heavily injured, it did not matter. They could easily recover. Therefore, it was best to kill an Abyss race warrior in one blow. The physical body of this Abyss race assassin in front of her seemed to be stronger than ordinary Abyss race warriors. As Long Yu reconstructed his physical body, he estimated the strength of this Abyss race assassin. In the end, he confirmed that this Abyss race assassin's strength had definitely reached the standard of an ordinary 7th rank ruler. As for its physical body and regenerative abilities, it surpassed that of an ordinary 7th rank ruler. This thing was so terrifying. It was definitely one of the few strong opponents that Long Yu had encountered so far. Fortunately, Long Yu relied on the 5th rank Devil Dust Heart to reconstruct his physical body. His recovery speed was not much slower than the Abyss race assassins. After a short incense stick's worth of time, Red Oriole was just about to be completely suppressed by the Abyss race assassin. At this time, Long Yu had completely reconstructed his physical body. Prophet rank 9 Nether Divine characters bombarded the Abyss race assassin. Unbounded Grasp. Long Yu used the 9 Nether Divine characters to use a high-grade unbounded martial skill. Even though there was a huge gap between their martial realms, this move still caused the Abyss race assassin's metal body to tremble. Chapter 1428. However, the Abyss race assassin's body only paused for a moment. After all, Long Yu's current martial realm was too low. It was too difficult for him to deal with a 5th rank sovereign realm Abyss race assassin. Moreover, this Abyss race assassin was not an ordinary 5th rank sovereign. Looks like this time, just like last time, I can only be a bystander, Long Yu thought to himself. In a battle of this level, his usefulness was extremely limited. Fortunately, he still had some other abilities. For example, the absolute space domain of the ancient Dragonbone Tower could seal off the Abyss race assassin's escape route. Moreover, with the Void Nether Dragon Blade, he could quickly catch up to the assassin and ensure that he could not escape. Coupled with Red Oriole's powerful deduction abilities, this Abyss race assassin had no chance of escaping once he was stalled. Unfortunately, the 5th rank Sovereign Realm Fire God race expert that Long Yu had sealed in the ancient Dragonbone Tower had not yet been transformed into a darkness creature and could not be used. Otherwise, this battle would have been a lot easier. Red Oriole used her dragon's heavenly grip to suppress the Abyss race assassin for a moment, allowing her to recover. After all, She had gone through many trials at the Academy. Even when facing such a powerful Abyss race assassin, Red Oriole didn't panic. Moonsong was still hiding inside the Void Nether Dragon Blade and did not appear. She was waiting for an opportunity to strike. The moment a good opportunity appeared, it would be the Abyss race assassin's death. Red Oriole had a lot of experience fighting other races. Right now, she could tell that she could not face this Abyss race assassin head-on. Otherwise, she would not be his match. Therefore, she quickly began to use a roundabout strategy. She used all kinds of methods to delay the Abyss race assassin. Blood-colored divine characters continuously condensed in the battlefield and were shattered by the Abyss race assassin's violent physical body. No matter how hard Red Oriole tried, she could not trap the Abyss race assassin for more than a breath's time. Fortunately, with Long Yu's help, Red Oriole did not fall into a disadvantage. However, if this continued, the situation would be very disadvantageous for them. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, Long Yu had an idea and released the 3 dark creatures that he had transformed earlier from the ancient dragon skeleton tower. Before Huang Xiaolong obtained the corpses of the 3 fire god race clansmen, he had stayed in Long Zaiqian's iron fortress for a few days. During that time, he had transformed the corpses of the 3 fire god race clansmen into dark creatures. Although these darkness creatures didn't have the combat experience they had when they were alive, they still had superior combat instincts. The fire god race elites that were able to come to the foreign race's battlefield, even if they died and turned into darkness creatures, their combat strength would still surpass a normal 3rd phase dominator. Now, the 3 dark creatures didn't stop at all. They dashed straight towards the Abyss tribe assassin. The 3 dark creatures surrounded the Abyss tribe assassin, and the power of the 9 nether divine characters surged. These 3 dark creatures had been warriors of the fire god race when they were alive, and they had used the power of fire attribute divine text. But now that they have been transformed into dark creatures, their bodies contained the revelation level 9 nether divine text. In this respect, these 3 dark creatures were even stronger than when they were alive. However, they didn't have the martial techniques and divine abilities they had when they were alive, which became their weakness. The 3 dark creatures immediately turned the situation around. They teamed up with Red Oriole and firmly trapped the Abyss tribe assassin. Of course, this was only for a moment. Even with 3 more helpers, Red Oriole was still facing a lot of pressure. The Abyss tribe assassin didn't panic at all. His tough body glowed with a metallic luster as he dashed through the void. It was just a simple collision, but it instantly landed on the body of a dark creature. The terrifying force directly smashed the dark creature into pieces, and its pitch-black body scattered in all directions, turning into scattered netherworld divine runes power that scattered into the surrounding void. The other 2 dark creatures, under Long Yu's control, took the opportunity to launch their strongest attacks at the Abyss tribe assassin. The 9 nether divine characters condensed into countless pitch-black beams of light that landed on the Abyss tribe assassin's body. The surface of the Abyss tribe assassin's body glowed with a metallic luster. It dimmed for a moment, but then it became even more resplendent. With a flash of metallic light, the Abyss tribe assassin shot toward another dark creature like a cannonball. The 3 dark creatures were only able to buy some time for Red Oriole. They couldn't do any damage to the Abyss race assassin at all. However, Long Yu wasn't discouraged. He continued to use all kinds of methods. While he summoned the 3 dark creatures, he also summoned a few 9 nether hunters. Almost 10 9 nether hunters were like walkers in the dark. They easily snuck to the Abyss tribe assassin's side. Then, they each used the Heartblade 3rd cut. The machetes in their hands carried a strong mental attack that enveloped the Abyss tribe assassin. The physical strength of the Abyss tribe far surpassed that of any other race. Whether it was the human race or the monster race, they couldn't compare. However, their mental strength was their weakness. Even though Long Yu's martial arts realm was 5 levels lower than his opponent's, which was a world of difference, when the 9 nether hunters used the Heartblade 3rd cut, the mental blades landed on the Abyss tribe assassin's body, causing the Abyss Tribe assassin's mind to fall into a trance again and again. Although it was just a trance, it was very useful in the battle. Red Oriole accurately grasped every opportunity. The blood-red divine characters condensed into a long whip. Then, while the Abyss Tribe assassin's mind was in a trance, the blood-red whip landed on the weakest part of his body, causing the metallic luster on his body to dim again. It was impossible to kill the Abyss Tribe assassin like this. However, Red Oriole and Long Yu still had a trump card. That was Moon's Song, who was inside the Void Spirit Dragonblade space. Their mission was to make the Abyss Tribe assassin forget all other aspects of his vigilance. Then, they would hope that Moon's Song would appear at the crucial moment and kill him in one blow. Therefore, no matter what, Long Yu had to work with Red Oriole to drag the Abyss Tribe assassin into a bitter battle. Quietly, Long Yu's Berserker heavenly power began to stack on top of each other. The aura of a Berserker god descending into the world blossomed from Long Yu's body. In just a short period of time, the power he could erupt with Berserker god runes was 10 times greater than normal. Since it was so difficult to fight the Abyss Tribe assassin, then he would use Battle Heaven power, a high-grade, unbounded rank martial skill. As the Battle Heaven power increased, the Abyss Tribe assassin would feel more and more pressure. Of course, for the time being, Long Yu still didn't dare to fight the Abyss Tribe assassin head-on. He could only keep forming desolate shadow images and have them attack the Battle Fist Cannon at the Abyss Tribe assassin. The Abyss Tribe assassin relied on his strong body to take each wave of the Battle Fist Cannon head-on. He didn't dodge or evade at all. This situation made Long Yu very happy. Because the other party didn't dodge, he could stack up more Battle Heaven power. Once the Battle Heaven power reached a certain level, he would be able to fight the Abyss Tribe assassin head-on. He might even be able to kill the Abyss Tribe assassin in the end. However, it wasn't easy to stack up the Battle Heaven power. Long Yu had to hide his Battle Heaven power at all times, because if the Abyss Tribe assassin sensed it, it was very likely that the Abyss Tribe assassin would attack Long Yu first. At the moment, the Abyss Tribe assassin didn't feel that Long Yu was a threat. Even though the descent of the Mad God had increased the power of his Battle God rune tenfold, the Abyss Tribe assassin didn't think that Long Yu was a threat. On the contrary, because Red Oriole exploded with even more power, the Demon Blood Six Wings awakening skills came one after another. Blood-red light flashed in the air, bombarding the Abyss Tribe assassin. During this period of time, Red Oriole's power became stronger and stronger. Gradually, the Abyss Tribe assassin felt the pressure, and it had to spend a lot of effort to deal with Red Oriole. The Abyss Tribe assassin kept colliding with Red Oriole's body. The metallic light kept breaking through the blood-red light, appearing extremely domineering. However, Red Oriole relied on her nimble body and some kind of divine ability to use the Demon Blood Six Wings to dodge the opponent's attacks. According to this situation, the Abyss Tribe assassin couldn't even touch Red Oriole's body. But Long Yu didn't stop at all. He kept forming ancient shadows and firing mad fist cannons at the Abyss Tribe assassin. Although the Abyss Tribe assassin kept chasing after Red Oriole, Long Yu's ancient shadows could still use Mad Battle God Walk. He instantly flashed to the opponent's side and punched. Every time he punched, the Battle Heaven power on Long Yu's body would increase by another level, doubling the power of his Battle God runes. However, Long Yu temporarily hid the fact that his Battle God runes were continuously increasing. He dodged and didn't dare to fight head-on. He kept harassing the Abyss Tribe assassin. Under Long Yu's constant harassment, the Abyss Tribe assassin became impatient. He kept using his tough body to smash the ancient shadows. Then he raised his hand, and a part of his body separated from his body. This was the metal liquid that Long Yu had seen before. The Abyss Tribe was a foreign race. They weren't like the human race or the demon race, which had a complete body. Instead, they relied on their bodies to survive. They could split into different parts of the metal liquid, and each part had its own life. Now, this Abyss Tribe assassin was impatient with Long Yu's harassment. He finally started to activate the metal liquid. He wanted to use the metal liquid that took up 20% of his power to kill Long Yu. The metal liquid flew out of the Abyss Tribe assassin's body and instantly accelerated to the limit. Like a metal cannonball, it landed on Long Yu's body. This situation gave Long Yu a fright. But the good thing was that he had experience fighting the Abyss Tribe before. He was already prepared for this move, so he was able to react in time. Chapter 1429. The water absolute beginning power wrapped around him. In that instant, the Nether Void Dragon Blade teleported him hundreds of meters away, successfully dodging the opponent's metal liquid cannonball. This metal liquid was separated from the opponent's body. The opponent didn't need to spend much effort to control it, because this metal liquid had its own life and thoughts. This was the terrifying aspect of the Abyss race. An individual could split into many parts to fight at the same time. Besides the Abyss race, no other race had this ability. Ancient primordial shadows like Long Yu or 9 Nether Hunters, although they could create the effect of many against few, in reality, they weren't very useful. That was because the primordial afterimage and a Netherworld Hunter were undoubtedly too weak when compared to Long Yu's own strength. They were basically not even a tenth of Long Yu's strength. However, the metal liquid that the Abyss race had separated was different. Even 20% of the Abyss race's power was at least 70% of the Abyss race's power. This was the terrifying aspect of the Abyss race. The Abyss race warrior that Long Yu had fought before was only 2 levels higher than Long Yu. Thus, the suppression in this aspect wasn't very obvious. But now, Long Yu was facing 20% of the metal liquid alone, and it seemed like he wasn't able to do as he wished. All of Long Yu's ancient desolate shadows and 9 Serenity's hunters were instantly blasted into smithereens by the metal liquid cannonball. Then, the metal liquid cannonball continued to fly towards Long Yu, who was 100 miles away. As the metal liquid came, it slowly turned into a body of the Abyss race. However, it was just a little smaller than the original body. It was as if the Abyss race had given birth to a son. Long Yu couldn't help but wonder if the Abyss race's reproduction method was like this. After all, this method of reproduction was quite efficient. After all, the little one that was separated had the intelligence of the original body. It also had a certain level of the original body's power and power. It was much easier to cultivate than the human race or the monster race. However, Long Yu didn't know how the Abyss race reproduced. Perhaps he would find out in the future. But right now, Long Yu's biggest problem was dealing with this metal liquid clone. As for the Abyss race assassin, after the metal liquid was separated, its power was reduced to 90%. This made Red Oriole a little easier, but not by much. Red Oriole kept attacking the Abyss race assassin with blood-colored divine characters. Because the Abyss race assassin had spent some effort on Long Yu, Red Oriole was able to push him back a little. The metallic light on his body was even dimmer than before. However, this dimming only lasted for a moment. In the blink of an eye, the Abyss clan assassin returned to his perfect form. Most importantly, his figure suddenly disappeared from the void. This situation dumbfounded Red Oriole. She remembered that the Abyss race assassin's concealment ability was very strong. Unless she used her divination ability, she wouldn't be able to find the other party's traces. Now that the Abyss race assassin was hiding in the void, it had clearly discovered that Red Oriole and Long Yu weren't as easy to deal with as it thought. It was ready to use its trump card. This Abyss race assassin was called the Abyss race assassin because its assassination skills were extremely terrifying. The two of them had already experienced its assassination skills. If Red Oriole hadn't suddenly divined its position and coincidentally reminded them, the Abyss race assassin's first attack would have succeeded. If Long Yu hadn't dodged in time, not only would his physical body have exploded, but even his demon dust heart would have been heavily damaged. If that had happened, it would have been a disaster for Long Yu. Right now, Red Oriole couldn't put all her attention into divining. If she did, the Abyss race assassin might suddenly appear behind her and attack her. If she was suddenly hit by the Abyss race assassin, Red Oriole didn't have a demon dust heart like Long Yu's, which could quickly reconstruct her physical body. If she was hit, Long Yu's side would lose a fighting force. Even if Moon Song came out again, she might not be able to kill the Abyss Race Assassin. Long Yu was dealing with the Abyss Race Assassin made of liquid metal. It was like dealing with a fourth-phase Sovereign Realm Abyss Race Assassin. The pressure was great, but Long Yu didn't transfer this pressure to Red Oriole. This was his responsibility in the first place. This part of the liquid metal definitely had to be dealt with by Long Yu. Ancient desolate afterimages were continuously condensed by Long Yu. At this moment, Long Yu had unknowingly stacked 45 layers of Berserker Heaven power. With the addition of Berserker God's Descent, he had stacked 15 layers. In total, he had 60 times the power of the Berserker God's text. 60 times the power of the Berserker God's text was enough for Long Yu to kill some third-phase sovereigns and even ordinary fourth-phase sovereigns. However, it wasn't enough to deal with the Abyss Race Assassin's liquid metal doppelganger. Therefore, Long Yu still didn't reveal the layers of his Berserker Heaven power. He only maintained his original fighting style, using ancient desolate afterimages to circle around the Abyss Race Assassin. Long Yu kept using Berserker God's Step. This movement technique was pretty good. He could quickly move to the side, and he didn't need to use spatial divine characters. The opponent wouldn't be able to see where he was moving. Long Yu purposely lured the metal doppelganger far away. The metal doppelganger didn't care and chased after Long Yu. Although this metal body had its own intellect and life, it was still under the orders of the main body, and that was to kill Long Yu, that fellow from the human race. Since this was the case, before the Abyss Race Assassin's main body gave any other orders, the metal doppelganger would use all kinds of methods to carry out this mission. Therefore, the metal doppelganger chased after Long Yu. Long Yu could teleport thousands of feet with each instant shift, and the metal doppelganger chased after him. This situation caused Long Yu to feel joy in his heart. If the opponent continued to chase after him, it would be very advantageous for him. However, Long Yu was in a very dangerous situation. If he wasn't careful, he could be hit by the metal doppelganger. Then, the terrifying power would destroy his body. If the opponent destroyed his body again, the Abyss Race Assassin wouldn't allow Long Yu to reconstruct his body unless someone bought him time. But now that Long Yu had lured the Abyss Race Assassin away, he was cutting off his own path of retreat. Even if he needed reinforcements, Moon Song and Red Oriole wouldn't be able to make it in time. Moon Song was left behind by Long Yu and the Void Nether Dragon Blade in Red Oriole's direction. Little Void and Red Oriole worked together to restrain the Abyss Race Assassin's main body. Little Void kept casting Void Burial, forcing the Abyss Race Assassin's main body to move in a strange way. Every time the Abyss Race Assassin wanted to kill Red Oriole, Void Burial would always erupt at a critical point, forcing the Abyss Race Assassin to retreat. Even the Abyss Race Assassin, who had an extremely strong body, couldn't resist the Void Burial cast by the Void Nether Dragon Blade. However, Void Burial was too difficult to hit. Although the Abyss Race Assassin was very powerful, if the opponent saw that Void Burial was about to erupt, they would definitely have enough time to dodge. Unless someone forcibly controlled the Void Burial, there was no way to hit the opponent. With Little Void and Red Oriole working together, the Abyss Race Assassin's main body became extremely violent. In its eyes, whether it was Long Yu, Red Oriole, or the Void Nether Dragon Blade, they were all small things that couldn't withstand a single blow, but they had managed to hold it back for so long. If the other geniuses of the Abyss Race knew about this, wouldn't they laugh at it? Therefore, the Abyss Race Assassin prepared to deal a fatal blow. Buzz! The Abyss Race Assassin's body emitted the sound of metal scraping against each other. Then, its speed exploded to the limit as it headed straight for Red Oriole. This time, its speed reached an unprecedented level. Red Oriole didn't even have time to dodge. Although Void Burial had erupted, the Abyss Race Assassin's main body didn't care about it all. It wanted to kill Red Oriole first. Red Oriole was in danger. There was no other way. Moon Song, who had been hiding inside the Void Nether Dragon Blade, could only come out now. The power of the starry divine characters poured down like a waterfall, descending directly in front of Red Oriole and aiming at the attacking Abyss Race Assassin. Awakening skill, Galaxy Waterfall. The Abyss Race Assassin could feel the sharpness of Moonsong's attack. It knew that, even with its physical strength, it would be seriously injured if it took Moonsong's attack head-on, especially when the Void Burial flow was still erupting in its original spot. Its forceful attack would definitely put it in a dangerous situation. Moonsong's sudden appearance made the Abyss Race Assassin a little flustered. However, it also knew that this situation was most likely orchestrated by the humans and the monster race. It couldn't escape, so its only chance of survival was to kill all of them. Even if it had to suffer injuries, the Abyss Race Assassin had to kill Red Oriole first. Its determination was extremely firm. A metallic streak of light shot out of the void, instantly cutting through the Void Burial's Genesis power vortex. It met Moonsong's awakening skill, Galaxy Waterfall, and rushed directly in front of Red Oriole. This speed was simply too fast. Red Oriole wanted to dodge, but she was unable to do so. In the end, she was still too slow. But at this time, Longyu suddenly flashed, appearing next to Red Oriole from an unknown distance. Then, he grabbed Red Oriole with one hand and activated the Book of Shadows. The power of the world sucked Red Oriole into Longyu's small world. The Book of Shadows had turned Longyu into nothingness. Longyu, who was in a state of nothingness, directly dodged the powerful attack of the Abyss Clan Assassin's main body. Then, he flashed to the side and unleashed the Berserker Fist Cannon, bringing with it a terrifying void wave. 100 times the power of the Berserker divine characters. Void Burial, Galaxy Waterfall, and Berserker Fist Cannon. The Abyss Race Assassin was caught off guard and fell into the encirclement of these three terrifying skills. Chapter 1430. Galaxy Waterfall was the absolute beginning divine grade awakening skill that Moon's Song had awakened. It was extremely powerful when she had awakened it to the 10th level. Void Burial was the Nether Void Dragon Blade's strongest technique. Although its power was a little delayed, the Abyss Race Assassin had taken the initiative to enter the range of Void Burial. Finally, the Berserker Fist Cannon was the result of Longyu's hard work during this period of time. While fighting against the Metal Body Doppelganger, Longyu was stalling for time, luring the Metal Body Doppelganger further away. At the same time, he was condensing desolate ancient afterimages to continuously use the Berserker Fist Cannon, superimposing his own Berserker Fist Cannon and continuously hiding it. At this moment, Longyu released all the power he had been hiding. The power of the Berserker Fist Cannon was 100 times stronger. The three attacks came from three different directions and completely surrounded the Abyss Tribe Assassin. It was impossible for him to dodge. Facing this situation, the Abyss Tribe Assassin seemed to be a little surprised. His body suddenly split into several pieces of metal liquid. These pieces of metal liquid spread out in all directions. The original body of the Abyss Tribe Assassin was strong, but didn't have much penetrative power. Now that he had split into pieces of metal liquid, his penetrative power had become extremely strong. Every single piece of metal liquid was able to penetrate one of the three attacks, passing through the Void Burial Stream and the Galaxy Waterfall. Although they suffered some damage, none of them were fatal. On the other hand, Longyu's Berserker Fist Cannon, due to the fact that it was under his free control, landed a punch on one of the metal liquids. With this punch, the metallic luster on the surface of the metallic liquid immediately became incomparably dim, and the speed at which it was fleeing into the distance was directly reduced. Again, Berserker Fist Cannon. Longyu didn't hesitate. He withdrew one punch and continued to throw another. Facing the metal liquid in front of him, the Berserker Fist Cannon exploded again. The power of the Berserker Fist Cannon was 101 times stronger. It was the strongest state Longyu had ever been in. In order to stack so many Berserker Fist Cannons, Longyu had taken several archaic medicinal pills to recover the power in his body. However, the result was gratifying. stacked with close to 100 layers of Berserker heavenly power, coupled with the descent of the Berserker God, which increased the power of the Berserker God's runes by more than 10 times. Every punch of his possessed an explosive power that could shake the heavens and earth. Even when compared to ordinary 5th phase great rulers, they were already not far off. When Long Yu's Berserker Divine Rune was 10 times stronger, his strength was equivalent to a 3rd stage Dominator. Now that his Berserker Divine Rune was 100 times stronger, it was comparable to a 5th stage Dominator. Simply put, if Long Yu used the Berserker Fist Cannon, his power would be equal to a 5th phase Prime Minister. And this was when Long Yu's compatibility level with the Berserker Attribute Divine Rune was relatively low. If Long Yu could reach the 12th level of compatibility with the Berserker Attribute Divine Rune in the future, reaching the peak of compatibility, then the effects of his Berserker's celestial body would be even more terrifying. Long Yu punched 3 times in a row. The metal liquid couldn't dodge and was hit by Long Yu's punches. On the 3rd punch, the metal liquid was finally destroyed. After all, the Abyss Race Assassin's metal liquid doppelganger only had 70% of the strength of the main body. Even if it was a 5th phase Dominator, the metal liquid doppelganger couldn't stop the current Long Yu. Although the Berserker Fist Cannon's unlimited stacking was extremely powerful, starting from 100 times, Long Yu could clearly feel that this tyrannical power was a huge burden on his body. If this continued, Long Yu's body would probably collapse after a few punches. Therefore, in theory, unlimited stacking was something that Long Yu couldn't achieve. Fortunately, with the help of the Devil Dust Heart, Long Yu's body that was on the verge of collapse was constantly being reconstructed. At 100 times, it was still fine. The Devil Dust Heart could save him. At 200 times, the burden on Long Yu's body would be even greater. Perhaps even the Devil Dust Heart wouldn't be able to stop his body from collapsing. Although Berserker Fist Cannons could be stacked without limit, there were still other objective limitations. If one's body wasn't strong enough, it would be impossible to continue fighting after stacking the Berserker Fist Cannons to a high enough level. In that kind of situation, if he used the power of the Berserker Fist Cannons, Long Yu's body would begin to collapse. If it was a bit more severe, even the Devil Dust Heart wouldn't be able to stop it. Once the body completely collapsed, even if the Devil Dust Heart was completely reconstructed, the new body wouldn't have the Berserker Fist Cannons that had been stacked before. Now, it could be said that Long Yu had cultivated the Berserker Fist Cannons to a certain level. Naturally, he had a deeper understanding of it. Long Yu punched 3 times consecutively. The power of the Berserker Fist Cannons was 100 times stronger. It directly shattered the metal fluid. However, he also suffered a lot of damage. Many parts of his body couldn't withstand the power of the Berserker Fist Cannons and began to collapse. For a moment, even though Long Yu had the Devil Dust Heart's regenerative ability, he could only stay where he was for a while to repair his body. Fortunately, when the Abyss Race Assassin saw that Long Yu was so powerful, the other metal fluids scattered in other directions. He no longer had any intentions of attacking Long Yu. Although the metal fluids that passed through the Void Burial Stream and the Star River Waterfall were injured, they were still alive. On the other hand, the metal fluids that were bombarded by Long Yu completely collapsed. The life contained within them dissipated. Long Yu's sudden appearance and punches shocked Moon Song and Red Oriole. They never imagined that Long Yu, a lower ruler, could be so powerful. Although Long Yu seemed to have suffered a great deal of damage from the recoil of that power, to Long Yu, this bit of damage was nothing. Originally, Long Yu had cultivated the Dead Realm Refinement Body and the Berserker Fist Cannons. The strength of his body far surpassed that of an ordinary person. Moreover, he had the Devil Dust Heart. There was no way that Long Yu would die from the recoil. However, he would temporarily lose some of his combat power. As long as the Devil Dust Heart healed his shattered body, he could immediately return to battle. Moreover, he would be faster and more destructive than before. Secret martial arts, martial techniques, and divine abilities could all complement each other. For example, right now, Long Yu's Devil Dust Heart and the Berserker Fist Cannons could be used together to great effect. These two combined to form a powerful existence like Long Yu. Without the devil dust heart, Long Yu's punches would have destroyed a portion of the metal fluids, and he would have lost all of his combat power. After 3 punches, each punch was more tyrannical than the last, and the damage to his body became more and more severe. Among them, the most conspicuous was Long Yu's hands, which were practically mangled from the recoil, revealing his ghastly white bones. Fortunately, the devil dust heart continued to throb, reconstructing that part of his mangled body. Don't let a single one escape. Kill them all. Moonsong saw the Abyss Race Assassin's 5 metal fluid doppelgangers flee in all directions. Her mission this time was to kill this Abyss Race Assassin. Therefore, she couldn't let go of any of the metal fluids. Each of these metal fluids carried the Abyss Race Assassin's memories, as well as her own life and consciousness. If she let any one of them go, she wouldn't be able to complete the mission she had accepted. In addition, the combat power that Long Yu had displayed was enough to shock the Abyss Race Assassin. A high-level dominator was able to kill its metal fluid doppelgangers. How can an ordinary person do this? If she let it escape, and news of Long Yu's existence was exposed in the Abyss Race, many powerful existences of the Abyss Race might come to strangle Long Yu in the cradle. Right now, Long Yu is only a lower ruler, but he was already so tyrannical. In that case, when Long Yu stepped into the Great Ruler Realm, or even rose to the 7th stage Great Ruler Realm, he would definitely become a great enemy of the Outsiders. After all, the Outsiders had a plan to assassinate geniuses. All the Outsiders had been gathering intelligence on the humans and demons. Once they discovered any extraordinary geniuses, they would think of ways to kill them to prevent them from developing and becoming demigods. They weren't afraid of anything else, but if the number of demigods increased, it would be fatal news for the Outsiders. Both the human clan and the demon clan had the same plan. Therefore, they had placed many scouts among the foreign races to search for geniuses among them. To be honest, in the eyes of the Outsiders, any human or demon that could enter the Demigod Academy was a target that had to be eliminated. Therefore, it was extremely dangerous for the students of the Demigod Academy to go out for training. However, none of the students of the Demigod Academy were easy to deal with. Right now, Red Oriole and Moonsong were both 3rd phase Great Dominators, but they were both able to complete a 5th phase Great Dominator mission. Only the students of the Demigod Academy could have this kind of strength. Moonsong chased after 2 of the metal doppelgangers. Red Oriole also killed 2. As for the last one, after Long Yu's body was reconstructed, he used Void Traversal to flash in front of the opponent. Then he directly punched out. Boundless Grasp, Berserker Fist Cannon. 2 unbounded martial skills were used in succession. First, the opponent's body was restrained. Even if it was only for a moment, the Berserker Fist Cannon followed up. With 1 punch, the metal doppelganger completely exploded. Clearly, now that Long Yu had stacked Berserker Heavenly Power to more than 100 layers, his combat strength had long since reached the level of an ordinary 5th phase Great Dominator. Stacking more than 100 layers of Berserker Heavenly Power was not that easy. After 1 punch, Long Yu's body began to crumble again. At the same time, the Abyss Clan Assassin's metal doppelganger was also smashed by his fist. It completely exploded, and the life consciousness within it dissipated. Chapter 1431. Right now, Long Yu's combat power was just too strong. He could easily kill one of the metal doppelgangers by himself. He could use the Boundless Grasp to completely control the other party. Then, he used the Berserker Fist Cannon. The terrifying divine runes of the Berserker Fist turned into a storm that shattered the metal doppelganger. It turned into a large pile of metal fragments that scattered in all directions. The fragments had completely lost their life and spirituality. This part of the metal doppelganger had completely died and could no longer be recovered. As for Moonsong and Red Oriole, the 2 women reacted and chased after the 2 metal doppelgangers. They couldn't let this Abyss Race Assassin live. They had to kill any of his metal doppelgangers. I'll let them deal with these four, Long Yu thought to himself. He had another target, which was the metal doppelganger that the Abyss race assassin had sent to kill him at the start. Just now, he and the metal doppelganger had used a delaying tactic to lure it far away. Then, they had turned around and destroyed the Abyss race assassin's main body. Now, he had to turn around and get rid of the metal body clone. Otherwise, the metal body clone would take advantage of the situation and escape. Long Yu didn't want any flaws in his mission. Since the metal doppelganger had come to kill him at the start, he had enough responsibility to kill it. However, the metal doppelganger seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and completely hid in the void. This made Long Yu a little depressed. If the opponent hid like this, it would be really hard for him to find where it was hiding. It should be known that Long Yu's martial realm was only that of a high-rank ruler. Even though the opponent was only a metal doppelganger, it still had the basic strength of a 4th-rank ruler. With Long Yu's strength, it was impossible for him to deduce where the opponent was. Even if he wanted to, it would be a complete waste of energy. Only Red Oriole could deduce where the metal doppelganger was. However, Red Oriole was busy chasing after 2 metal doppelgangers. She was already in a mess and wouldn't have the time to help Long Yu deduce. Therefore, if he wanted to find the metal doppelganger that he had lured far away, he could only rely on himself. Long Yu quickly arrived at the place where he lured the metal doppelganger to and used the balanced light on himself. The Abyss race assassin had a powerful concealment technique. However, after splitting into various metal doppelgangers, it might not be able to use the same powerful concealment technique. Therefore, it was very likely that the metal doppelganger's concealment technique was not very good. Therefore, Long Yu tried using his own technique first. Balance control, balance light. When Long Yu executed this martial arts secret technique, his spiritual sense instantly increased by more than 10 times. Then he spread his spiritual sense into the surrounding void, searching for any trace of the aura of the metal body avatar. However, he did not expect that he would actually find a trace of it. He sensed that the metallic fluid had actually split into 2 again, and both of them fled into the void in different directions. Although they were both concealed, they couldn't hide it all from Long Yu's spiritual senses, which were 10 times stronger. One had to know that Long Yu had cultivated the balance control to the peak of the 9th realm. His spiritual senses were more than 10 times stronger than ordinary martial cultivators of the same realm. After using the balance light, it could be increased by another 10 times. In total, it was equivalent to Long Yu's spiritual senses being more than 100 times stronger than cultivators of the same realm. It was similar to the Berserker divine text that surrounded his body. It was not difficult for Long Yu to find a metal doppelganger that wasn't very good at concealment. Since he had found it, it would be easy to settle the next matter. Without any hesitation, Long Yu used the boundless grasp and pulled the 2 metal doppelganger back completely. The prophet-level Netherworld divine text instantly wrapped around the bodies of the 2 metal doppelganger. These 2 metal liquid doppelgangers were the original metal liquid doppelgangers that had split into 2 smaller ones. Each of the smaller metal liquid doppelgangers had 1/10 of the original Abyss race assassin's power. Although they only had 1/10 of the original's power, in reality, these 2 metal doppelganger could exert half of the Abyss clan assassin's power. They were not as weak as imagined. However, in front of Long Yu now, these 2 small Abyss clan assassins were like little fellows. They couldn't resist at all. Although Long Yu used the prophet-level Netherworld divine text to use the boundless grasp to pull the 2 metal doppelganger over, he couldn't control them. They immediately wanted a counterattack against Long Yu. However, Long Yu didn't give them any chance. He used the Berserker divine text to use the boundless grasp. This time, the violent power of the Berserker divine text directly confined the 2 metal doppelganger on the spot. Now, Long Yu could use the Berserker divine text to unleash the power of the boundless grasp. This time, the power of the Berserker divine text was increasing. It had reached a level of 107 times. Under such circumstances, even if Long Yu used the Berserker divine text to use the boundless grasp, his hands were in a state of collapse. The demon dust heart was still beating, and it was beating faster and faster. This caused his body to reconstruct faster and faster. However, it still couldn't catch up to the speed at which his body was collapsing. As soon as he used the Berserker Divine Text, his body would be shaken by the tyrannical power. The demon dust heart kept beating, and only then did he manage to maintain Long Yu's current combat power. After using the Berserker Divine Text to use the Boundless Grasp, Long Yu punched out twice. The terrifying explosive power completely shattered the two metal doppelganger, turning them into metal fragments. Without the slightest hesitation, Long Yu completely obliterated these metal fragments with the ninth hell divine markings, causing them to completely vanish from the world. Then, he turned around and, with the same thought as the Void Dragon Blade, instantly teleported to where Red Oriole was. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that his Berserker Heavenly Power level was high enough to help Red Oriole and Moonsong kill all the opponents they were chasing. However, when he arrived, he discovered that Red Oriole and Moonsong didn't need his help. They had already killed the two metal doppelgangers. Even though all the metal doppelgangers had been destroyed, Long Yu didn't relax. Moonsong and Red Oriole didn't act rashly either. They didn't get carried away. The three of them looked at each other and nodded. Then, Red Oriole started to gather her deduction power again. She followed the aura of the Abyss Race Assassin and spread it in all directions. The deduction power quickly descended on the Abyss Race Assassin's body. However, it was now divided into 10 invisible deduction pillars that landed on the Abyss Race Assassin's metal doppelgangers. Without a doubt, these metal doppelgangers had all been killed. Even their auras were becoming weaker and weaker. Before long, even the deduction power couldn't divine the Abyss Race Assassin's aura. Only then did the three of them breathe a sigh of relief. This was because the Abyss Race Assassin would truly be dead if his deduction ability couldn't predict it. Otherwise, even if he killed all the metal liquid doppelgangers, he couldn't guarantee that the Abyss Race Assassin would be completely killed. Long Yu, I didn't expect you to be so strong now. Moonsong looked at Long Yu, her eyes flashing with admiration. She had originally thought that Long Yu, who had entered the Demigod Academy a year later than her, was still her junior. But now, it seemed that it wouldn't be long before Long Yu could truly surpass her. This guy could actually kill the metal liquid doppelganger of the Abyss clan, which was almost as strong as her. This really surprised her. It should be noted that Long Yu was only a high-level ruler. His cultivation was so low, but his combat ability was so strong. Even the Abyss Race Assassin couldn't suppress Long Yu at all. Moonsong and Red Oriole could already tell that Long Yu's fighting style was to continuously stack his Berserker style to make the power of the Berserker style stronger and stronger. But where did this kind of method come from? After becoming strong enough, every time Long Yu used it, his physical body would show signs of collapsing, but he could rely on the demon dust heart to quickly reconstruct his physical body and recover. Moonsong was very glad that they could kill the Abyss Race Assassin in time. Otherwise, if this continued, Long Yu might not be able to hold on. Even the speed at which his physical body was reconstructed could not keep up with the speed at which his physical body was collapsing. If that happened, the situation would be very bad, and they would probably be finished. It was obvious that in this operation, Long Yu's role had increased a lot. It could be seen that Long Yu's strength had increased by at least 10 times since the last time they had met. He could even face the Abyss Race Assassin's metal body head-on. At that moment, Long Yu's entire body was surrounded by the Berserker style. He looked like a crazy warrior. However, as time passed, the Berserker style on his body gradually retreated and dissipated. Long Yu's eyes, which were originally filled with the Berserker style, finally regained their clarity. The intense battle just now had made his heartbeat accelerate to an unimaginable level. It wasn't just the beating of the demon dust heart. The beating of his own heart indicated that he was in an extremely excited state. This made him take out the 3 heavenly crystal grade creation items in his arms without hesitation. Then, he chose one of them and began to absorb the creation power within it. This made Moonsong and Red Oriole look at each other. They tacitly didn't say anything. Instead, they silently guarded and protected Long Yu by his side. This was because Long Yu was clearly trying to use this opportunity to break through to the Great Ruler realm. Although there was only a gap of one realm between a superior ruler and a first-stage ruler, in reality, the difference in basic strength was too big. Once Long Yu broke through, he would cross a huge gap and become even stronger than before. Chapter 1432. Long Yu had just experienced an intense battle and pushed himself to his limits. All the power in his body seemed to be boiling. If he didn't try to break through now, when would he? Long Yu remembered that Scarlet Oriole had broken through to the Great Ruler realm in the midst of an intense battle. Thus, fighting was indeed a great way to promote a cultivator's growth. Long Yu began to absorb the third Great Heaven Crystal item of creation, while Moonsong and Scarlet Oriole guarded Long Yu from the side. That Abyss Race assassin has been completely eliminated. Once Long Yu completes his breakthrough, we can go back and turn the mission. Scarlet Oriole smiled at Moonsong. Yes, to be honest, if it weren't for Long Yu's help, that Abyss Race assassin really would have been difficult to deal with. With just the two of us, even if we could kill it, it would have taken us at least 10 times longer, and we might have encountered danger as well, Moonsong said with some emotion. Clearly, she had completely acknowledged Long Yu's strength. She raised her head and looked at Long Yu. She realized that he was focused on breaking through to the next level. It was very obvious in this space. After all, the Berserk Battle Divine runes circled around his body. They hadn't completely dispersed yet, making him look like a Berserk war god. When Long Yu absorbed the Celestial Crystal Creation item, he channeled all of the creation power into his small world to expand his own small world. As Long Yu's small world continued to expand, Long Yu's basic power also began to slowly increase. Ever since a cultivator stepped into the Dominator's secret realm, the size of the small world would affect the cultivator's basic power. The bigger the small world, the stronger the cultivator's basic power. Long Yu was neither arrogant nor impatient. After the intense battle, he began to cultivate step by step, attempting to break through. Long Yu hadn't encountered any bottlenecks in a long time. Even now, when he broke through from Upper Ruler to Great Ruler, he didn't encounter any bottlenecks. In any case, all he needed to do was absorb the power of creation from the creations to expand the territory of his small world and slowly approach the level of a Great Ruler. Time continued to pass. To Red Oriole and Moonsong, this was the moment they witnessed the birth of a powerhouse. After 3 days and 3 nights, Long Yu finished absorbing the 3 heaven crystals of creation and finally transformed himself. Thinking back to the time when Red Oriole broke through, it was because she had already reached the critical point of breaking through. Then, during the intense battle, she broke through the shackles and obtained a promotion. And now, Long Yu is relying on the 3 celestial crystals to forcibly expand the territory of his small world. Then, when he encountered a bottleneck, he broke through it in one fell swoop, almost without encountering any bottlenecks. As soon as Long Yu broke through to the first level of the Sovereign Realm, he felt a tremendous energy surge out of his body. This breakthrough had increased his base strength by 4 or 5 times. After all, this was a breakthrough to the next level. For a cultivator, this was a qualitative change. Long Yu's fierce battle with the Abyss Race assassin had allowed him to break through to the first level of the Sovereign Realm. Even he hadn't expected this to happen. He had already burned all of his potential and used all of his abilities to fight against the Abyss Race assassin. Apart from the killing prison of the 4 elements, Long Yu had used all of his abilities to barely clean up the Abyss Race assassin's liquid metal doppelganger. This was with the help of Red Oriole and Moonsong, whose fighting strength could be said to be on par with Long Yu. But now, Long Yu had broken through to the first level of the Sovereign Realm. His strength was even stronger than Red Oriole and Moonsong's. Of course, this required Long Yu to stack his heavenly berserker power to 100 layers. If they were to fight like this, Moonsong and Red Oriole wouldn't give Long Yu any chance to stack his heavenly berserker power. This was certain. Therefore, if they were to spar, Long Yu might not necessarily be a match for Red Oriole and Moonsong. However, if the three of them were to work together against a powerful enemy, Red Oriole and Moonsong would be the ones to pin down the enemy, while Long Yu would be in charge of stacking his heavenly berserker power and defeating the enemy in one fell swoop. Long Yu's greatest strength now wasn't in one-on-one battles, but rather in teamwork. He could be used as a trump card. After breaking through, there was no need for the three of them to remain in this void. How many Battlefield Legion merit points will we get after completing this Academy's mission? Long Yu asked the two girls after coming back to his senses. A total of 6 million points. If the three of us split it equally, each of us will get 2 million Battlefield Legion merit points. Although it's not much, it's still an easy mission, Moonsong replied. She then took out a jade slip with a metallic texture. This jade slip still had the remnant aura of the Abyssal Race Assassin. This aura was added by the demigod powerhouses of the Demigod Academy. If they didn't complete the mission, this aura would remain. Red Oriole had used this aura to deduce the whereabouts of the Abyssal Race Assassin. In the end, they had caught up to him and killed him. Because Long Yu had obtained several tens of millions of Battlefield Legion merit points from his previous trip to the alien battlefield, he didn't really care about the 2 million Battlefield Legion merit points from this mission. However, it was better than nothing. When the time came, whether it was to purchase Transcendence Wine or Shadow Essence, they would need a huge amount of Battlefield Legion merit points. What Long Yu needed now was to accumulate them and wait for the next opportunity. However, what made Long Yu feel rather conflicted was that when he asked Moonsong, she also said that she had never seen Shadow Essence. Although Flame Essence, Ice Essence, Light Essence, and the like were precious, they had at least appeared before. Only Shadow Essence was far too rare in the human and Yao territories. It was said that Shadow Essence was produced in the Spiritas territory, but the Spiritas territory was far too eerie and strange. Not to mention searching for Shadow Essence. Ordinary people didn't even have a chance of coming back alive after entering their territory. Long Yu had some understanding of the Spiritas. After all, he had fought against them in the bloody battlefield and killed one of them. The Spiritas didn't have a physical body. If one's spiritual sense wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to sense the existence of the Spiritas. Even if one were to enter the territory of the Soul Clan, in the eyes of those cultivators who were not qualified, their surroundings would be completely empty. Once they were struck by a sudden mental attack, there was an 80% to 90% chance that only death awaited them. The Void Star River's location seems to be next to the Spiritas territory. When my strength is enough, I can go to the Spiritas territory and give a try. Who knows, I might really be able to find traces of Shadow Essence. Long Yu thought to himself, this matter was extremely dangerous, so he couldn't do it in a short period of time. At the very least, he had to wait until he reached a higher cultivation. A Phase 1 Great Dominator was still too weak. At the very least, he had to wait until he reached Phase 4 or Phase 5 Great Dominator and could deal with ordinary Phase 7 Great Dominators. Only then would he have the slightest chance of entering the Spiritas territory. Long Yu still had some confidence in this. Others didn't dare to enter the Spiritas territory, but that didn't mean that Long Yu didn't dare. After all, he had cultivated the world-purifying physique. Moreover, he had raised it to its peak and derived the world-purifying soul mirror. To the Spiritas, the world-purifying physique was a martial path secret technique that could completely restrain them. It could naturally block the majority of mental attacks and control methods. Cultivators who cultivated this martial path secret technique could definitely be said to be the natural enemy of the Spiritas. However, Long Yu felt that just relying on the world-purifying physique wasn't enough. Now that he had stepped into the Great Dominator realm, he had some new ideas. Within the 9 Underworld Prison Steel, there was still a core that he hadn't explored. He was very clear that whether it was the world-purifying physique or the devil dust heart, they were both excavated from the 9 underworld prison steel's core. Back then, the Geo-Dragon Emperor had already explored a portion of it. However, the current Long Yu hadn't explored the 9 underworld prison steel's core in the slightest. This time, I'll go back and rest first. Red Oriole, Moon Song, how far away are you from breaking through? Long Yu asked the two women. I'll be able to break through to the 4th phase Great Dominator realm very soon. However, Red Oriole should still be quite far away. Moon Song glanced at Red Oriole and said with a smile, I actually want to break through before taking on the next mission. However, to break through, I'm afraid I'll have to go into seclusion for about a month. No one had ever broken through as easily and quickly as Long Yu. Moon Song wanted to break through from the 3rd phase Great Dominator realm to the 4th phase Great Dominator realm, but there was an insurmountable bottleneck. Even with Moon Song's talent, breaking through this bottleneck wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. However, she should be able to do it in about a month. Red Oriole nodded and said, since you've broken through and Moon Song can break through as well, we'll wait a month before taking on the next mission. Then, we'll be able to accept slightly more difficult missions. Is there anything you can break through during this month? Long Yu asked Red Oriole. He was still quite concerned about Red Oriole's cultivation. After all, she was his woman. He couldn't let her cultivation go wrong, nor could he let her waste her time for nothing. I could try to cultivate that high-grade, endless martial skill jade slip you gave me, Fiend Shadowbind. This control technique seems to be very useful. I'll need to cultivate it to the peak or perfection level before I can use it in actual combat, Red Oriole said with a smile. Clearly, she had also thought about what she could do in the next month. In fact, apart from cultivating Fiend Shadowbind, she had many other techniques that she could cultivate and improve. For example, she had yet to cultivate balance control to the peak of the 9th layer, so her spiritual sense wasn't at its optimal state. This would still affect her to a certain extent. As for improving balance control, she still needed the support of cultivation resources. This wasn't a problem for Long Yu or Red Oriole. The two of them currently had a large amount of Battlefield Legion merit points on them. Purchasing a few Heaven Crystal creation items wasn't too difficult. Chapter 1433. Moon Song activated the Metal Aura Jade Slip, and a wave of Water-type Absolute Beginning Power enveloped the three of them, sending them back to the inner part of the Demigod Institute. Until now, Red Oriole still didn't know where the Demigod Institute was built. She only knew that it was definitely not within the territory of the human race or the Yao race. Even Moon Song, who had been here for more than a year, wasn't very clear about this, let alone Red Oriole. Even the faction leaders Frost and Imperial Wind didn't understand this problem. Long Yu guessed that it was very likely that the Demigod Institute was in a place similar to the Galaxy of Void. That was the only way that it could be 100% peaceful and undisturbed. Thus, Long Yu was very surprised that the Demigod Institute's training Jade Slip could transport cultivators such a long distance. Only demigod experts could do this. After returning to the Demigod Institute, Long Yu planned to rest for more than a month and wait for the new batch of Divine Connection wine to be put on the shelves. He also wanted to test the 9 Hell Tablets core. Now that he had stepped into the Great Dominator realm, his cultivation had reached a whole new level. There was no harm in trying again. After all, they weren't lacking in battle merits. It was better to first summarize what they had gained during this period of time. After Red Oriole returned, she exchanged for a few Sky Crystal Tier creations and hid in her room to cultivate. She was still a distance away from becoming a 4th phase Great Dominator, but it was good to cultivate now. Moreover, she also wanted to improve the balance control secret technique, which also needed to absorb the creation power from the creations. On the other hand, Moonsong wasn't far from becoming a 4th phase Great Dominator. After a month, if they met again, she would most likely be a 4th phase Great Dominator. Long Yu returned to his room and began to transform the corpse of a 5th phase Great Dominator from the Fire God race. After about 7 days, he he would be able to transform it into a darkness creature. In summary, after a month or so, the 3/5 phase Great Dominator corpses sealed in the Dragon Bone Tower could all be transformed into darkness creatures. This preparation of Long Yu's would allow him to display greater combat strength at critical moments. Then, he took out the 9 Hell Steel in his room. After all, nobody except himself could enter his room in the demonic college without his permission. He didn't need to worry about being seen by others. As for the administrators of the demigods, they had long known that Long Yu had the 9 Hells prison steel. After all, Long Yu had shown the 9 Hells prison steel many times in public. Now, no one would disturb Long Yu. Long Yu did not know what was in the core of the 9 Hell tablet, but he was sure that the remnant consciousness of the Joyo Dragon Emperor was absorbed into the core and sealed. Right now, there was an internal space in the 9 Hell prison steel that contained rich revelation-level 9 Hell divine characters. There was also a small world space, which was created by Long Yu's small world in the 9 Hell prison steel. Apart from that, there was also a core space. When Long Yu checked it before, the core space was firmly locked by the 9 Hell divine characters, and Long Yu couldn't break through it at all. But now, as his understanding of the revelation-level 9 Hell divine characters deepened, it seemed that the core space's barrier was no longer so unbreakable. Long Yu took out the 9 Hell prison steel and erected it in the center of his room. Although it was a room, it was actually a very large space that could accommodate the entire 9 Hell prison steel. In front of the 9 Hell prison steel, Long Yu was completely insignificant. But as the revelation-level 9 Hell divine characters condensed all over his body, his aura gradually merged with the entire 9 Hell prison steel. Before becoming a great sovereign, Long Yu wouldn't have resonated with the 9 Hell prison steel at all by doing this. But now, he had condensed the revelation-level 9 Nether divine characters all over his body, attracting the attention of the 9 Nether prison tablet. Moreover, the 9 Nether prison tablet also emitted a rich revelation-level 9 Nether divine characters, which connected with the 9 Nether divine characters all over Long Yu's body. The two sources of the 9 Hell divine characters, one big and one small, were both emitting revelation-level 9 Hell divine characters, and a creepy aura quickly covered the entire area. Long Yu could clearly sense that there were 3 different spaces in the 9 Hell prison steel: the internal space, the small world space, and the core space. But now, the 9 Hell prison steel's core space was still not open to Long Yu. Of course, after entering the Great Sovereign's secret realm, the revelation-level 9 Hell divine character strength had increased by about 5 times. He could already break through the 9 Hell prison steel's core space's first barrier. The 9 Hell prison steel's core space was set up layer by layer. Now that Long Yu had broken through the first layer, he was enveloped by the revelation-level 9 Hell divine characters and stepped inside. This was an awe-inspiring, pitch-black space. The space wasn't big, and the entire space seemed to be sealed within a black sphere. On the inside of this black sphere, there were some strange and awe-inspiring patterns. These patterns gave Long Yu a familiar feeling. This is the cultivation method of the worldly purity physique. Long Yu's heart jumped. He finally understood where the Joyo Dragon Emperor had obtained the worldly purity physique. Looking at these creepy patterns, Long Yu suddenly had a different feeling about the worldly purity physique. This feeling made him ecstatic. In the past, the worldly purity physique that Long Yu had cultivated was something that the Joyo Dragon Emperor had cultivated. It contained the Joyo Dragon Emperor's understanding of the worldly purity physique. However, regardless of whether it was a martial skill or a secret martial skill, it had its source. The one that the Joyo Dragon Emperor had cultivated was not the source. Therefore, the version of the worldly purity physique that Long Yu had cultivated was not the strongest. Now that he had seen the source of the worldly purity physique, it would undoubtedly make the effect of his worldly purity physique stronger. In other words, it would become more authentic. Even though he had cultivated the worldly purity physique to the peak of the 9th layer, he realized that the effect of the worldly purity physique could be strengthened after coming to the first layer of the nine hell prison steel's core space. In this black sphere space, there were creepy patterns engraved in all directions, and they were all related to the worldly purity physique. Long Yu realized that as long as he recorded these patterns in his mind, the effect of the worldly purity physique would be enhanced. This situation was something that he had never encountered or heard of before. It was unheard of that a secret martial skill could be enhanced by engraving patterns. However, the mystery of the nine hell prison steel had long made Long Yu aware that there would be something extraordinary in the core space. These patterns of the worldly purity physique contain some strange power. As long as I imprint these patterns in my mind, I can enhance the effect of the worldly purity physique. This is too easy, Long Yu thought to himself. After calculating, he discovered that there were a total of 198 mysterious patterns on the black curtain-like walls surrounding the black spherical space. Each mysterious pattern could enhance the effect of the worldly purity physique by 1%. If there were no accidents, after all these mysterious patterns were imprinted in his mind, the effect of Long Yu's worldly purity physique would be enhanced by 3 times. This was an incredible number, and it was equivalent to cultivating the worldly purity physique to the 10th level. However, in reality, it was impossible to cultivate a secret martial skill to the 10th level. This was good news for Long Yu. The enhancement of the effect of the worldly purity physique meant that he would have more protection when he ventured into the Soul Clan's territory in the future. However, Long Yu soon discovered that these 198 mysterious patterns were not as simple as he had imagined. The first 22 mysterious patterns were easily imprinted in Long Yu's mind, and he completely memorized them, increasing the effect of his worldly purity physique by 22%. This process basically didn't take much time to complete. However, from the 23rd mysterious pattern onwards, Long Yu discovered that the difficulty of imprinting them in his mind had at least doubled, and the time required had also doubled. However, once he could imprint them in his mind, each mysterious pattern could enhance the effect of the worldly purity physique by 2%. This situation made Long Yu fall into deep thought. As he worked hard to imprint these mysterious patterns in his mind, he pondered the situation. Could it be that these mysterious patterns had their own levels? If 22 patterns were a level, then 9 levels would add up to a total of 198 patterns. In other words, when the worldly purity physique was cultivated to the first level, it could absorb and record the 22 patterns. When the worldly purity physique was upgraded to the second level, it could record and imprint another 22 patterns, and the effect would be even more significant. The 22 mysterious patterns in the second level could enhance the effect of the worldly purity physique by 2%, and when all of them were added together, it could enhance the effect by 44%. With this calculation, just the 66 patterns in the first 3 levels could double the effect of the worldly purity physique. This discovery made Long Yu ecstatic. Based on this situation, if he casually calculated and imprinted all 198 mysterious patterns in his mind, the effect of the worldly purity physique would be enhanced 99 times. He just didn't know if the effect of these mysterious patterns would continue to increase, as Long Yu guessed. What Long Yu could confirm was that the further he went, the more difficult it would be to memorize these mysterious patterns. As for whether the effect was proportional to the increase, he wasn't sure. Imprinting the first 22 mysterious patterns, Long Yu spent less than 10 breaths of time on each of them, and his speed was very fast. But for the second 22 mysterious patterns, Long Yu spent at least 40 to 50 breaths of time on each of them, which was at least 4 to 5 times the time required. According to this situation, if Long Yu wanted to imprint all 198 mysterious patterns, it would take more than 3 years. If the difficulty of each mysterious pattern was increased by 5 times, then it would take more than 50 days to comprehend one of the final 22 mysterious patterns. However, these were all just guesses. As for the specific situation, Long Yu would find out as he continued. Chapter 1434. Long Yu calculated for a moment. According to the current trend, he would be able to imprint the first 7 realms' 154 mysterious patterns in his mind after resting for more than a month. If he imprinted all of these patterns in his mind, the effects of Long Yu's pure world body would increase by 660%, which was more than 6 times. However, it would take 2 months to accomplish so much. This made Long Yu feel somewhat conflicted. After all, they had agreed to rest together for a month and a half. Actually, 2 months is just right for cultivation. After all, a new batch of soul-connecting wine will be on the shelves in a month and a half. Red Oriole and I will still need to cultivate for a while, and Moonsong can also use this opportunity to cultivate that martial technique, 9 Firmament Star Flash. Long Yu thought to himself. He first shook his head and did not think too much about it. In any case, he would first memorize these mysterious patterns and imprint as many as he could in his mind. Moreover, what Long Yu was thinking about the most was whether there was something similar to these mysterious patterns in the second layer of the 9 Hell Monument. Something that could increase the effects of his Devil Dust Heart. Compared to the World Pure Body, the Devil Dust Heart was a martial arts secret technique that could enhance Long Yu's strength by a lot. If he could strengthen the Devil Dust Heart, then Long Yu would be able to reconstruct his fleshly body at a much faster speed. He would be able to face stronger opponents and have a stronger recovery ability. However, Long Yu seemed to have no way of opening the second layer of the 9 Hell Monument. It seems like I have to comprehend all the mysterious patterns in the first layer, Long Yu thought to himself. He was a little puzzled. Right now, he had to comprehend all the mysterious patterns in the first layer, especially the 22 patterns of the pure world body. Each one would need 50 days. It was too long, and the efficiency was very low. It seemed like opening the second layer of the 9 Hell Monument would still take a long time. However, Long Yu was surprised. Originally, he was unable to open the first level of the core space. Now, however, he was able to open it. Furthermore, he was able to enter and imprint these mysterious patterns into his mind. Didn't this mean that as Long Yu's martial Dao realm improved, or some other aspect improved, it would be able to speed up his comprehension of these mysterious patterns? For the time being, Long Yu didn't know what he needed to add to increase the speed of engraving patterns in his mind, but he guessed that there should be one or more factors that affected it. But then again, the speed at which Long Yu imprinted the first few mysterious patterns into his mind was extremely fast. Every mysterious pattern of the first layer would only take 10 breaths of time to complete. The second layer would only take 5 times the time. The third layer would take another 5 times the time to complete all 22 mysterious patterns of the third layer, which would only take 2 hours. 2 hours later, Long Yu had already imprinted the appearance of the 66 mysterious patterns in his mind, and as a result, the effects of the body of pure world were more than doubled. Long Yu's ability to resist mental attacks and control methods had become stronger, but the rebound effect of the mirror of pure world did not increase much. It was still only 10 times the rebound effect. All in all, the body of pure world was just a means of protection. Although the mirror of pure world could rebound the opponent's attack at the critical moment, the strength of the rebound depended on the opponent and had nothing to do with Long Yu's own strength. Next, Long Yu began to engrave the 22 mysterious patterns of the fourth layer. His speed was not slow, and he could imprint 5 patterns in his mind in about 2 hours. When Long Yu imprinted 88 mysterious patterns, less than 12 hours had passed. Long Yu was quite satisfied with this efficiency, mainly because the effect of his body of pure world was greatly improved in such a short period of time. It was a pity that the balance control was not a martial Dao secret technique recorded in the 9 Hell Monument, which made Long Yu feel a little regretful. Otherwise, wouldn't it be nature-defying to improve the balance control like this? He began to comprehend the 22 mysterious patterns of the 5th layer. Basically, he could comprehend one of them in 2 hours, and it would take him 2 days to comprehend them all. During this period of time, Long Yu tried to pay attention to the various factors that affected the speed of the mysterious pattern imprinting. In the end, he found that the improvement of his basic strength, the improvement of his understanding of the Revelation Level 9 Hell Scripture, and the improvement of his understanding of the metal origin power could speed up the speed of imprinting the mysterious patterns in his mind. It seems that I have to wait until the divine connecting wine is on the shelves and improve my understanding of the Revelation Level 9 Hell Scripture to speed up the speed of imprinting these mysterious patterns. Long Yu thought in his heart as he continued to imprint the appearance of those mysterious patterns in his mind. The effect of the worldly purity body was constantly increasing. Although the speed was relatively slow now, the first few mysterious patterns could still be imprinted in Long Yu's mind. Even if it was increased by 6 times, it would be a great improvement for him. In a short period of time, if he wanted to improve his strength, there was no other way, so it was still useful to imprint these mysterious patterns first. After opening the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet, Long Yu found that his real rise had just begun. In the past, other people might also have the strength to challenge those of a higher level, but the things in the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet could not be obtained by others no matter what. Because, right now, even though Long Yu had imprinted those mysterious patterns in his mind, he was unable to display the appearance of those mysterious patterns to others. This kind of mysterious pattern could only be imprinted in one's mind after comprehending it from the 9 Hell Tablet. And the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet was not a place that anyone could enter. Long Yu found that he could enter the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet, not only because he had comprehended the Revelation Level 9 Hell Scripture, but also because he had inherited the inheritance of the Joyo Dragon Emperor. Others like Consort Yu might not be able to enter this core space. In other words, only Long Yu could obtain the mysterious patterns that strengthen the body of Pure World. As for the others, although Long Yu could impart the World Pure Body, Devil Dust Heart, and other secret martial arts to others, he was unable to obtain the support of the mysterious patterns. In the end, he was still weaker than Long Yu. The body of Pure World, Devil Dust Heart, these secret martial arts skills were already very nature-defying. Needless to say, after receiving the enhancement of the mysterious patterns, what kind of existence could these secret martial arts skills become? No wonder the Joyo Dragon Emperor could reach the peak of the demigod realm back then. Among the experts in the demigod realm, he could be considered as one of the top experts. The reason was that in the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet, there was actually such a mysterious pattern that could strengthen the effect of the secret martial arts skills. This was only the first level. Long Yu could guess that there would be more mysterious patterns related to the Devil Dust Heart, and there would definitely be many other things. The ancient God-forbidden technique of the 4 Hell Tablet should also be obtained from this core space, but he did not know which level it was on. In the 9 Hell Tablet, the basic power was the Revelation Level 9 Hell Divine Text, which was located in the inner space. It was not too difficult to comprehend the Revelation Level 9 Hell Divine Text. At least it was something that ordinary people could do. Consort Yu and the others could also use the ordinary 9 Hell Divine Text to enter the inner space of the 9 Hell Tablet to comprehend the Revelation Level 9 Hell Divine Text. And with the Revelation Level 9 Hell Divine Text as the foundation, the 9 Hell Tablet had many more powerful techniques recorded, such as the body of Pure World, Devil Dust Heart, and 4 Hell symbols. Unfortunately, Long Yu did not have a deep understanding of the 4 Hell symbols. The current him could only use the most basic technique of the 4 Hell symbols, which was to entangle the opponent with death lines and then corrode the opponent with death aura. Its power was still rather limited for the current Long Yu. If there was no fighting celestial body, the 4 Hell symbols could be said to be Long Yu's strongest killer move. Unfortunately, fighting celestial body could be stacked without limit in theory, so it was definitely Long Yu's trump card in battle. As for the 4 Hell symbols, before Long Yu made a breakthrough in it, it would be very difficult to use it. Previously, when he was dealing with the 3rd phase Fire God Race Elite, Long Yu had used it once, but it did not produce any good results. Therefore, he was prepared to put the 4 Hell symbols on the agenda. This was an ancient god-forbidden technique. If he cultivated it to a high level, it would definitely be stronger than fighting celestial body, much stronger. More than a month had passed. Long Yu had already memorized the mysterious patterns in his mind. He had already made it to the 7th level. The previous 132 mysterious patterns had already been imprinted in his mind. Now, it would take at least 2 days to imprint each of the 7th mysterious patterns in his mind. This speed was a little slow. When a new batch of divine wine was put on the shelves in the demigod college, Long Yu had only imprinted 9 of the 7th mysterious patterns in his mind. The rest could only be put off for later. On this day, when the new batch of divine wine was put on the shelves, Long Yu, Red Oriole, and Moonsong came out of their rooms and gathered in the hall. In the past month and a half, Moonsong had indeed advanced to the 4th phase Great Ruler Realm. The power of the stars, she comprehended, had become much stronger than before. Moonsong's basic strength had directly increased by more than 3 times. If she had used her current strength to deal with the Abyss Tribe Assassin, it definitely wouldn't have been as difficult as before. As for Red Oriole, although her martial realm hadn't increased, she had been constantly cultivating and mastering the secret martial art, bringing it to the peak of the 9th level. She could also use the balanced light. Of course, the most important thing was that her spiritual sense and perception had been passively increased by several times. She had tested it with Long Yu and found that the effects of the balanced light couldn't be stacked. In other words, for the same cultivator, they could only enjoy the benefits of the balanced light once. Their spiritual sense and perception would be increased by 10 times at most. Even if 2 people used the balanced light at the same time, they wouldn't be able to stack the effects repeatedly. Even so, Red Oriole's spiritual sense and perception had now reached an extremely high level. It was even comparable to a 7th phase Great Ruler expert. In addition, she had also cultivated the Demon Shadow Bind, a high-grade, unbounded martial art, and the results were not bad. Chapter 1435. Moonsong's Starflash 9 firmament had already reached the Major Mastery Realm, while Red Oriole's Shadowbind had also reached the Major Mastery Realm. The 2 women's progress was about the same. Moonsong was improving her martial arts realm, while Red Oriole was cultivating her balance control. The 2 women had been doing pretty much the same things for the past month. Long Yu, on the other hand, only imprinted the mysterious patterns in his head to improve the effect of the body of purity. Now, the 3 of them gathered in the Hall of the Demigods, ready to buy a new batch of divine enlightenment wine. The main thing was that Long Yu needed this kind of thing. He still had Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine Text, Metal Elemental Primordial Power, and Water Elemental Primordial Power to comprehend, which would take a lot of time. Therefore, the Soul Transcendence wine was indispensable. At the very least, it could save him several years of effort. With 100-fold comprehension speed in a day, each bottle of Soul Ascension wine could save Long Yu at least 3 months of time. If he could buy 10 bottles of Soul Ascension wine, it would be equivalent to saving Long Yu 2.5 years of time. Of course, a bottle of divine wine cost 4 million battle merit points. Not everyone was willing to buy it. Ordinary cultivators would rather spend 3 months on cultivation than spend their battle merit points on divine wine. In a demigod's college, the demand for the divine connecting wine was quite high too. After all, they were all geniuses among the trainers. The military merits on the battlefield were not important to them. Only the speed of training mattered. When Long Yu's group of 3 arrived at the hall, they discovered that quite a few people were already there. Some of these people were choosing their training missions, but there were also a few people standing in the middle of the hall, as if waiting for something. Without a doubt, they were also here to compete for the Transcendence wine. When a new batch of divine wine or other items were put on the shelves, they would be brought directly to the main hall for auction. The highest bidder would win. Therefore, Long Yu and the other 2 were waiting for the auction to begin. Long Yu sized up those people and discovered that they were experts between the 5th and 6th phase dominators. There were a total of 4 people, and they seemed to be geniuses of the Imperial Wind faction. When Long Yu's group of 3 walked towards the center, it attracted the attention of these 4 people. If they were here to pick a mission, the 4 of them wouldn't even bother with them. But it was obvious that Long Yu and the other 2 weren't here to pick a mission. Instead, they were walking toward the center. It was very likely that they were here to buy heavenly wine just like them. Hey, aren't they the 2 new students this year? What are you here to buy? One of them narrowed his eyes and mocked. In this half a year, how many contribution points have the 3 of you earned? If you're here to buy the divine wine, I advise you to give up. His words were not polite at all. It could be said that he was directly provoking Long Yu and the other 2. This kind of thing was quite common. The 2 major factions of the demigod academies were originally existences that opposed and competed with each other. When Long Yu heard this, he didn't say anything. It was Moon Song who snorted lightly. In my opinion, you should be the ones to give up. We're really going to buy the divine wine. In the Demigod's Academy, the demand for divine wine wasn't small. Only 2 groups of people had appeared, and it was very likely that more people would come later. Therefore, Moonsong really didn't see these 5th and 6th phase dominators as her main competitors. One had to know that the competition for divine wine wasn't based on one's cultivation level, but on one's wealth. The more contribution points one had, the more divine wine they could buy. By now, Moonsong knew that Long Yu already had over 30 million Legion merit points on him. This could be said to be an enormous amount. These 5th and 6th phase dominators had earned at most 12 million contribution points in the past half a year. Compared to Moonsong, Long Yu, and Red Oriole, their total was much lower. As for Red Oriole and Moonsong, they had rested with Long Yu for more than a month, so they had only received around 10 million army contribution points each. But with Long Yu's, they had a total of more than 5,000, which was no less than the other side's. More importantly, the 2 women knew that Long Yu still had something good to sell this time. That was the most important thing, the unbounded high-grade Ice-type Demon Race attack martial skill. It could definitely sell for more than 30 million, and this was in a situation where there was no competition. Otherwise, 50 million wasn't impossible. Unbounded high-grade martial skills were just too rare. Even the demigod academies didn't have this level of reward. Even if they wanted to buy it with contribution points, they wouldn't be able to. Let's just wait a bit longer, Yang Qi said. With this batch of heavenly sorcery wine on the shelves and other items, more and more people will gather. Most of them will be new students like us. If Heavenly Qingxue and Heavenly Qingma show up, they'll be able to use the high, unending grade demon folk martial technique. Long Yu thought to himself. He didn't pay attention to those people's taunts. Instead, he brought the 2 women to the side and quietly waited for the divine wine to appear. The divine wine is definitely going to be theirs. You're quite arrogant. Moonsong, is this how Frost usually teaches you? However, the other side didn't seem to let them go and taunted them again. After all, they were all students of the Demigod Academy. As a result, these guys had an overflowing sense of superiority. When facing Long Yu and the others, they didn't care at all. It had to be known that whether it was Long Yu, Red Oriole, or even Moonsong, they were new students who had only been here for a year. As a result, these so-called old students naturally felt superior in front of Long Yu. However, Long Yu only glanced at them and indifferently said, I don't know how many years you've been cultivating in the Demigod Academy, but you're still only at the 5th or 6th phase ruler level. If it were me, I'd probably die of shame. How would I be in the mood to taunt others? As soon as these words came out, the 4 people's faces immediately darkened. Compared to their words, Long Yu's words were even more blunt. He was actually doubting their cultivation talent. Although they had been here for 3 or 4 years and were only at the 5th or 6th phase ruler level, this progress wasn't slow at all. That definitely couldn't compare to the top geniuses, but they weren't any worse than normal students either. You've only just stepped into the 1st phase ruler realm. I really don't know what gives you the confidence to say such a thing. One of them sneered at Long Yu with a sullen expression. Just based on the fact that I've increased 3 ranks in half a year, this confidence should be enough, right? If the other party wanted to cause trouble, Long Yu wasn't afraid of them. Even if they really fought, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Right now, there were 3 5th phase ruler dark creatures sealed in his ancient dragon skeleton tower. In addition, Moonsong and Red Oriole had become much stronger. There was no way he could be killed directly. As long as he could hold on for a while, would he really be afraid that the other party would really kill him in the Demigod Academy? Those who cultivated in the Demigod Academy were all the top geniuses of the human race and the demon race. Demigod experts couldn't just watch them kill each other. Therefore, Long Yu didn't have to worry about anything at all. Long Yu's words made the 4 people's hearts sink, and they didn't say anything for the time being. In half a year's time, he had risen 3 levels of martial Dao realms, directly from Lesser Ruler to First Stage Great Ruler. This speed was indeed extremely shocking. Ordinary people, even if they broke through the bottleneck from a higher ruler to a first phase ruler, would likely be stuck for half a year to a year, let alone someone like Long Yu. It was indeed not something ordinary people could do. Even in the Demigod Academy, only the top geniuses could reach this level. Could it be that this Long Yu was actually a top genius? Even if one had enough cultivation resources, as long as one didn't have enough talent, continuously increasing one's martial realm could very likely cause an unstable foundation. If that was the case, they could tell a glance. However, Long Yu clearly didn't show any signs of an unstable foundation in front of them. It was definitely a normal increase. It was obvious that Long Yu's martial talent definitely surpassed that of ordinary people, and even surpassed that of ordinary Demigod Academy students. Originally, there were only 100 people in the Demigod Academy, and they were all the strongest elites of the human race and the demon race. For Long Yu to be able to rank at the top among these people, it could be seen that his martial talent was indeed not bad. Of course, this was also related to the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor's inheritance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been stuck at a bottleneck like this, and he wouldn't have broken through to the Great Ruler realm so quickly. After a moment of debate, another group of people appeared from the entrance of the hall and walked towards the center. This group was also from the Imperial Wind faction. There were 3 people in total, and they were all peak experts of the 7th phase Great Ruler realm. Obviously, they were much stronger than the 4 people who mocked Long Yu just now. And when these 3 people came over, they only glanced at Long Yu and the others, and then ignored them. They weren't interested in mocking Long Yu or anything like that, as it wouldn't do them any good. These were true experts, unlike the 4 people who could only show off in front of the new students. Even the 4 people who didn't have the strength of the 6th phase Great Ruler realm didn't say anything to these 3 newcomers. When these 3 people appeared, the 4 people all shut their mouths, as if they were somewhat afraid of these 3 people. Long Yu sized them up. These 3 people were all dressed in black, and each of them was emitting a dense, murderous aura. It seemed that they had just returned to the Demigod Academy after carrying out a massacre. This is a true competitor. If I want to buy the Divine Connection wine, I'll have to compete with them. I'm afraid it won't be easy. Long Yu thought to himself. The 3 7th phase Great Ruler experts in black had such a dense, murderous aura. They must have been immersed in killing for a long time. Then, how many Legion merits did they have? It would probably be a number that Long Yu couldn't imagine. 30 to 40 million wouldn't be a problem for each of them, and it might even exceed 50 million. And this was only their harvest in the past half a year. As for whether or not they had any Legion merits in the past, no one knew. Chapter 1436. As time went by, more and more competitors appeared in front of Long Yu. Although Long Yu wasn't sure if they all wanted to buy the divine wine, on the surface, each group of people seemed to have a strong purchasing power. Even a bottle of divine wine that cost 4 million army merit points was just an ordinary item in the eyes of these people. It was not very precious. Soon, just as Long Yu expected, Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingma, who were new students like him and Red Oriole, also came to the hall with the 2 seniors of the Imperial Wind faction. Looking at their goal, it was obvious that they also wanted to compete for the divine wine. After all, they were a pair of twin demon race cultivators, and their martial arts realm was not too high. After all, They were too young and had not fully grasped many of their powers. The divine wine was very important to them. In total, there were more than a dozen groups of people, nearly 30 people, who wanted to bid for the things that were about to be sold. Of course, not everyone needed the divine liquor, but there was no doubt that the divine liquor was very competitive. Seeing that the pair of new students from the twin demon race had arrived, Long Yu walked over to them. Tian Shimon noticed Long Yu first. This genius in black from the demon race looked at Long Yu warily. "What can I do for you, Long Yu? I want to make a deal with you. Do you want to do it?" The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled up into a smile. "I have a jade slip of a high-grade, unbounded martial technique of the demon folk. It's suitable for demons who have grasped the power of ice divine symbols. It's an offensive martial skill. Do you want to make a deal with me?" Many people's expressions changed when they heard Long Yu's words. High-quality, unbounded level martial skill? That was just too amazing. How could he make a deal with a martial skill of this level? Almost everyone's eyes were focused on Long Yu because a high-quality, unbounded level technique was too shocking. It should be noted that few of the 14 demigods in the entire demigod college, including humans and demons, had practiced high-quality, unbounded level techniques. Martial skills of that level were something that only existed in legends. Because of the loss of unbounded martial skills, the humans and the demon folk were much weaker than they had been in the primeval age. But now, Long Yu is offering a high-grade, unbounded martial skill. It sounds like it's more suitable for the female demon of the twin demon clan to cultivate. However, such a martial skill jade slip is very valuable. The starting price is at least 30 million army contribution points, and if there's competition, it's definitely impossible to get 30 million. That's right, 30 million is the base price. In the outside world, there is absolutely no market for it. No one would sell a martial skill jade scroll of this level. If I had a high-grade, unbounded level martial skill like that, I'd be rich. I'd have to advertise it and gather all the people who need it before auctioning it off. That's the only way to maximize my profits. That's right. This Long Yu is too young. It's a bit of a loss to trade something like this. Many people whispered to each other and discussed in private. But what they didn't know was that for Long Yu, this high-grade, unbounded level martial skill was only one of the many unbounded level martial skills he had. Furthermore, Long Yu speculated that the Bone race and the Remnant race had at least a few dozen of such jade slips. Otherwise, Yu Wufang wouldn't have taken out 3 of them to trade for the spirit energy of heaven and earth. Furthermore, it was possible that Yu Wufang had some other supreme grade, unbounded level martial skills, or even supreme grade ones. After all, they had been passed down from the primeval era and the Remnant race. Other than the Bone race and the Remnant race, there was no way they could be found anywhere else. Right now, Long Yu wasn't just going to sell the unbounded level martial skill. He was also going to make the twin demon folk pay up all their army contribution points. That way, they wouldn't be able to compete with Long Yu for the soul transcendence wine. Of course, Long Yu wasn't sure how much he could sell it for. After all, things of this level were rare even in the Demigod Institute, so it would be hard to find any records that could be used as a reference. High-grade, unbounded level martial skill, demon folk, ice type. When Tian Qingxue heard this, she was immediately moved. Wasn't this martial skill tailor-made for her? She subconsciously looked around and found that there were no demon geniuses who had comprehended the frost attribute among the surrounding demons. Her heart could not help but race. If no one was going to compete with her, wouldn't she be able to get this high-grade, unbounded level martial skill easily? However, she soon realized that although no one else was as suitable for this martial skill as she was, there were many people who were just as excited as she was. If the price was low, she could buy it for 30 million and sell it outside for 70 to 80 million, or even 100 million army contribution points. Such a deal was definitely worth it. Therefore, Tian Qingxue wasn't the only one who would bid for Long Yu's martial skill. The others wouldn't let it go easily either. Long Yu also saw the looks in everyone's eyes. He knew what to do. Then he smiled and took out the high-grade, unbounded level martial skill jade slip. This is the high-grade, unbounded level martial skill. As students of the Demigod Institute, I naturally won't lie to you. You can start bidding now. The highest bidder wins. Normally, if one wanted to sell a martial skill jade slip in the outside world, a notary would have to be arranged to check it. Otherwise, the contents of a jade slip would be casually mentioned. But in the Demigod Institute, there was no need for such a notary. After all, they were all students of the Demigod Institute, and they were all top geniuses of the human race and the demon folk. Who would lie about such things? When Long Yu said that, the people around him started to get excited. Although the Godspin alcohol and the other cultivation resources hadn't arrived yet, Long Yu's appearance had already stirred up the crowd. In terms of value, the high-grade, unbounded martial technique he had just brought out was far more valuable than any of the other cultivation resources. 30 million. Before Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingxue could react, a bald young man next to them made a bid. He had an evil smile on his face, as if he was determined to get this martial skill. This bald young man was also a demon cultivator, but he didn't specialize in ice-type divine texts. But that didn't stop him from bidding for this martial skill jade slip. As soon as the bid of 30 million was made, Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingxue looked at each other and nodded. 32 million. Tian Qingxue directly made a bid. It seemed that in the past 6 months, this pair of twin demons had also received a lot of rewards from the army. The fact that he could take out 32 million without any hesitation showed that his assets were definitely no less than Long Yu's. Long Yu knew that those who could enter the Demigod Institute were all geniuses among geniuses. It was not a problem for them to earn 10 or 20 million in half a year. If it was geniuses like Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingxue who had excellent teamwork, it was not a big deal for them to earn 50 million together. Although their martial arts realm was slightly lower, just like Long Yu, they could still complete a lot of difficult tasks. Their martial arts realm did not affect their speed of earning military merits. 35 million. The price kept rising. The bald young man didn't hesitate at all and directly increased the bid. Tian Qingxue frowned and looked at the bald young man. After all, the bald young man was not suitable to cultivate this martial art. Why was he so determined to compete with them? The bald young man smiled evilly and said, "One of my wives is a demon cultivator with ice attributes. It is only right and proper for me to bid for her." Tian Qingxue didn't know what to say. Whether it was true or not, she couldn't stop him from bidding. After all, this thing belonged to the highest bidder. 36 million. Tian Qingxue clenched her teeth and bid. It was obvious that this price was difficult for her to bear. Moreover, she and Tian Qingxue would definitely be able to afford this price. Who would have guessed that I would have to spend all of the merit points I owed to the various seniors? Well, I guess I can forget about the Soul Ascension wine for now, but I definitely have to get my hands on this high, unbounded martial technique. Tian Qingxue whispered to his sister. In fact, Long Yu also knew why these people lost their composure. For example, after cultivating Fighting Mad, Celestial Body, and Unbounded Grasp, how much did his overall combat strength increase? It was almost unimaginable. To any cultivator, a high-grade, unbounded martial skill was something that could completely transform them. That was why it was so expensive and why so many people were fighting over it. 38 million. 40 million. After Tian Qingxue bid, the bald young man added another 2 million. However, his bid was overshadowed by another bid of 40 million merit points. Unexpectedly, this voice belonged to the 3 black-robed assassins Long Yu had noticed earlier. Each of them had an intense, killing aura, and it was obvious that they had just returned from the life and death battlefield. One of the 3 black-robed assassins also wanted Long Yu's high-grade, unbounded level jade slip. When one of the 3 black-robed assassins made a bid, the voices of the surrounding people quieted down, and they looked at the 3 of them with annoyance. Clearly, these 3 were not ordinary people. When they made a bid, the others didn't dare to bid anymore. "They're a very powerful team from the Windrider faction," Moonsong said. "There are 7 of them, and one of them is a female Yao cultivator who has comprehended ice-type divine symbols. However, she hasn't come back yet. I wonder what she's doing." Next to Long Yu, Moon's song transmitted to him. They're probably bidding on behalf of their companion. It's a pity that Tian Qingxue won't be able to get her hands on a jade slip. Chapter 1437. Moonsong's statement was more in line with the facts, and many people present thought so too. As soon as the three black-robe slaughterers made their bids, Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingma's expressions changed. They didn't expect the three of them to bid for the high-grade, unbounded rank martial skill. Everyone wants it. The highest bidder gets it. One of the black-robed slaughterers glanced at Tian Qingxue and said indifferently. Although his words weren't very polite, it was still an explanation for his bid. He actually spoke. Many people present were very surprised. After all, this group of 7 called the slaughterers rarely spoke to others. Now, for some reason, the black-robe slaughterer actually explained to Tian Qingxue, which made Tian Qingxue feel a little flattered. However, being flattered was one thing. She still had to fight for what she had to fight for. As a top genius of the twin demon race, Tian Qingxue naturally knew that she was the best. Her future achievements wouldn't necessarily be any worse than the 7-member slaughterer team. She and Tian Qingma looked at each other and then made the final bid. 42 million. This was all they had on them. As 2 new students who had just joined the Demigod Academy, it was already very good for them to get so much in half a year. Not to mention, they had already paid off the debt they owed before. Of course, this was also because the 2 6th phase sovereign seniors of the Imperial Wind faction had brought them along to complete their training at the academy. Thus, the merit points they obtained from the battlefield were split equally. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to obtain so much. After all, their martial cultivation was still relatively low. Most of the training in the Demigod Academy wasn't suitable for them. Because of this, the Imperial Wind faction had sent 2 senior students to lead them to the Academy's training. 42 million was their limit. Behind them, the 2 6th phase Great Sovereigns also seemed to be in a difficult position. One of them sighed and shook his head. Tian Qingxue, we can't help you. This time, we also saved up some battlefield merit points to buy what we need. It's okay, senior. We understand. Tian Qingxue quickly waved her hand. In the past 6 months, the seniors have helped us a lot. There's nothing we can do if we can't get this martial skill jade slip. Although she said that, Tian Qingxue's eyes still showed some reluctance. In fact, she also knew that although she had raised the bid to 42 million battlefield merit points, the possibility of getting it was too slim. How could the black-robe slaughterer give up such a good opportunity? But what happened next made everyone's jaws drop. I give up bidding. The black-robe slaughterer waved his hand and fell silent. Those 5 simple words caused everyone to whisper to each other. This was completely unexpected. They had assumed that the black-robed assassin squad would pay any price to buy the jade slip. After all, it was a high-grade, unbounded martial skill that could be used by one of the members of the squad of assassins. But now no one else was going to bid against Tian Qingxue. It was obvious that the black-robe slaughterer was going to help Tian Qingxue. Although no one knew why, it was obvious. He had made the bid to intimidate the others, and now he was giving up to help Tian Qingxue. Everyone was looking at Tian Qingxue curiously. She had been prepared to lose the auction, but never could she have guessed that the black garb killer would give up and give her the high-grade, unbounded martial skill jade slip. She was sure that neither she nor Tian Qingxue knew this slaughterer. Why would he give her face? Suddenly, she thought of the legendary existence of the Twin Demon Clan, the twin-hearted avian god. One of the demigod experts in the Demon Clan's territory was a member of the Twin Demon Clan. Could it be that this slaughterer squad was related to the twin-hearted avian god? Although the twin-hearted avian god originally had 2 members and one was dead, its combat strength was definitely at the demigod level. It was the strongest existence in the human and demon clans. It was quite possible that the slaughter squad had something to do with the dual-hearted avian god. After all, there were only a few top-notch powerhouses in the human race and the demon race's territory. The 7 members of the slaughterer squad were obviously one of them, so it was normal for them to be related to demigods. Of course, no one present was able to guess the exact reason behind it. All Long Yu knew was that, after the bidder gave up, he sold a high-grade, unbounded grade, ice-attributed demon-folk martial technique to Tian Qingxue for 42 million. This price was not considered a loss. However, if he manipulated it a little, it was possible for the price to double. It was just that Long Yu was too lazy to do so much right now. Just like that, Tian Qingxue and Tian Qingxue's assets were all absorbed by Long Yu. When the Soul Transcendence wine appeared, there would be one less competitor. One handed over the money, and the other handed over the goods. Long Yu gave the jade chip to Tian Qingxue. Then, he received a jade chip from her, which recorded 42 million military honor points. It was a special jade chip for the battlefield legions and could only be made by demigod experts. Also, only those who had a certain identity in the battlefield legions could change the number of military honor points. After Long Yu obtained this jade slip, he could take it to some of the management personnel of the army on the battlefield and transfer the contribution points of the army on the battlefield. In the battlefield army, transactions were usually done in this way. There were many other currencies in the human and demon territories, but in the battlefield of the alien races, the battlefield merit points were the most common. After receiving the 42 million battlefield merit points, Long Yu was a lot more confident about the competition for the Soul Transcendence wine. After receiving the jade slip, Tian Qingxue couldn't wait to immerse her mind into it. She found that it was indeed a powerful, unbounded level offensive martial skill. Furthermore, it contained the power of the frigid divine characters, which made her feel intoxicated. It was almost a martial skill tailor-made for her. If she was able to cultivate it to a certain level, then her overall combat strength would at least double or even more. It was equivalent to being able to surpass another level in the martial Dao to deal with even stronger opponents. That was the effect of an unbounded level martial skill. However, to be able to defeat an opponent one level higher than her, she would have to cultivate it to the transcendent level. Truth be told, Yang Qi said, 42 million is a pretty low price. If a high-grade, unbounded martial skill appeared on the battlefield, they'd advertise it for at least a month and then sell it to the public. Usually, they'd sell it for more than 100 million. Moon Song transmitted to Long Yu. In response, Long Yu shook his head. I don't really need battlefield merit points. As long as I have enough, that's fine. I'll give this unbounded level martial skill jade slip to someone who needs it. We're all comrades on the same side, so there's no need to be so specific. If Long Yu really needed battlefield merit points, there were plenty of things he could trade for it. It was just that he didn't really need it. Right now, Long Yu was just trying to weaken his opponent's ability to compete for the Soul Transcendence wine. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a hurry. This martial skill is a bit profound, Tian Qingxue said to the two seniors from the Windrider faction. It'll be very difficult to cultivate it to the peak. I'll go back and study it. Since all the battlefield merit points have been used to buy it, I don't have any left to compete for. Tian Qingxue said to the two seniors of the Imperial Wind faction behind him. Then, he left with Tian Qingma. Having just obtained a high-grade, unbounded level martial skill, they couldn't wait to go back and cultivate it. Anyone could understand their feelings, so no one found it strange. This scene caused Moon Song and Red Oriole to exchange glances with each other before they smiled at each other. Both of them had been surprised when Long Yu had given them a high-grade, unbounded level martial skill jade slip. Red Oriole was fine. After all, she already knew what Long Yu had. But Moon Song had never imagined that Long Yu would give her something so precious. Although the 9 Firmament Star Flash Jade Slip was only temporarily lent to her, it was still a very rare opportunity. More than half a year's time. If she cultivated with all her might, it would be enough for her to cultivate to the transformative state. At that time, she could return the Jade Slip to Long Yu. She wouldn't lose anything. She could duplicate the Jade Slip herself and give it to others to cultivate. The difference was that the Jade Slip she duplicated contained traces of her own cultivation experience. Others might be able to cultivate it successfully, but it wouldn't be so easy for them to reach the transcendent level. That was the difference between the original Jade Slip and the rubbing. Next, Long Yu waited for the Demigod Institute to put the next batch of divine wine and some other things on the shelves. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. Before the officials of the Demigod Institute appeared, a black-robed young man from the Slaughter Squad stepped forward, took something out of his pocket, and showed it to the crowd. Shadow Essence. Bid. The highest bidder gets it. It turned out to be a Shadow Essence. The corner of the black-robed young man's mouth curled up slightly, and he looked at Long Yu from time to time. It was obvious that he was targeting Long Yu. This made Long Yu's heart beat faster. The essence of Shadow was what he had always wanted. It was something that could enhance the effects of his innate skills. Chapter 1438. The Black-Clothed Killer took out the Shadow Essence. The others didn't think much of it, but Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. To him, this thing was extremely useful. For the opponent to take out the Shadow Essence at this time, could it be that he saw Long Yu sell something to Sky Crystal, so he decided to do the same thing? No matter what, for Long Yu, the Shadow Essence was definitely more important than the Divine Wine. The Divine Wine would be sold every half a year, but for the Shadow Essence, if he missed this opportunity, it was very likely that he wouldn't see it again for decades. First of all, let me explain. This Shadow Essence was obtained by our killer squad from the Soul Race's territory. There's no need to explain how dangerous it is. If you want to take this Shadow Essence away, the starting bid is at least 50 million battlefield army merit. Otherwise, it will not be sold today. The Black-Clothed Killer said calmly, intentionally or unintentionally looking at Long Yu. Clearly, this person knew that Long Yu needed the Shadow Essence. Long Yu was a bit confused. Why did this Black-Clothed Killer target him like this? Was it because he was part of the Imperial Wind faction and he was part of the Frost faction? The possibility of this wasn't high, but no matter what, he had to get this Shadow Essence today. After all, this was a rare opportunity. If he didn't take it, he would be letting himself down. No matter what, he had 42 million on him now. In addition to the original 35 million, he already had a huge sum of 78 million. One had to know that his first-class honor badge still brought him a monthly income of 500,000. 78 million should be enough to get this Shadow Essence. As for the Divine Wine, he could only wait and see. If he could buy it, then he would buy it. If he couldn't, then there was nothing he could do. In any case, if Long Yu wanted this Shadow Essence, he wouldn't let Red Oriole and Moon Song put up their assets. With such a high price, even an idiot would know that the opponent was toying with him. Even though Long Yu really needed this Shadow Essence, he wasn't willing to be toyed with by the opponent. 50 million. Thinking of this, Long Yu directly bid, and then glanced at the Black-Clothed Killer. As he placed his bid, the Black-Clothed Assassin also glanced at him. Their eyes met, and Long Yu saw a hint of mockery in the assassin's eyes. This kind of feeling made Long Yu very unhappy in his heart. However, he would not express this unhappiness. He didn't know the other party. Since the other party wanted to sell the Shadow Essence, he could just bid for it. There was no need to care about others. If the other party really wanted to provoke him, Long Yu wasn't a pushover. So what if it was a Slaughter Squad and a peak 7th phase Dominator? Long Yu also had his own methods. If the two sides really fought, it was hard to say who would win. Other things aside, as long as Long Yu put down his pride and called the Heavenfire Doyen out of the small world for help, it would be enough to deal with a few of the other party's fellows, not to mention his friends in the Void Galaxy. Long Yu never felt that he was at a disadvantage in the Demigod Academy. Even if his martial realm wasn't very high, it was impossible for others to bully him. After Long Yu bid 50 million, no one else bid for a while. But soon, a mysterious man in a black robe in the crowd raised his hand. 60 million, I want the Shadow Essence. His voice was a little hoarse, and no one could tell who he was. Even some of the other elders in the Demigod Academy didn't know who he was. It was obvious that this person had deliberately concealed his identity. 61 million. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and continued bidding. The current price was still within his acceptable range, and there was no need to give up. Anyway, it was good enough as long as he could get the shadow essence. As for who the person bidding against him was, Long Yu didn't care. But he guessed that it was very likely that the guy was on the side of the youth from the slaughter squad, just to raise the price. After all, Long Yu had learned that there weren't many cultivators in the entire Demigod Academy who practiced the Shadow Attribute Divine text, so the demand for the Shadow Essence wasn't very high. 70 million. The mysterious man in the black robe continued bidding. Compared to Long Yu's 1 million price increase, this person directly raised the price by 9 million, as if he was determined to get the Shadow Essence. This caused Long Yu to be a little puzzled. Could it be that this guy really wanted this thing? No matter what, Long Yu still had enough Legion merit to bid, so he continued bidding. 71 million. This was Long Yu's final bid. If the other party raised the price to 80 million, then Long Yu wouldn't bid anymore. To him, all the assets he had was his final limit. If he couldn't buy it, even if he went bankrupt, then there was no need to. In any case, in Long Yu's mind, he would go to the Soul Race's territory sooner or later. At that time, he would definitely be able to get more than one Shadow Essence originally. Long Yu had already planned for this Shadow Essence to be snatched away by someone else. But he didn't expect that after he bid 71 million, the mysterious man in the black robe didn't continue bidding. Instead, he waved his hand, indicating that he was giving up. Seeing this, the assassin in black smiled faintly. Long Yu bids 71 million. Is there a higher bid? If there isn't, then this Shadow Essence is his. Of course, the surrounding people wouldn't continue to bid. 71 million was definitely an extremely high price. Under normal circumstances, a Shadow Essence would be worth around 50 million. Many people felt that Long Yu had been scammed. However, Long Yu didn't think so. To him, Legion merit was just a worldly possession. If he could use it to exchange for something that could increase his strength, that would be the most important. The others didn't bid. Even if they bought the Shadow Essence at this price and resold it, they wouldn't be able to make a profit. Instead, they would suffer a loss. Long Yu's bid was already a high price, so it was normal for them to close the deal. The black-robed assassin nodded. Since that's the case, this Shadow Essence is yours. After saying this, he threw the Shadow Essence directly to Long Yu. As for Long Yu, he took out the Legion Merit Jade slip he had just obtained from Tian Qingxue, as well as the one he had on him, and handed it over to the assassin. After some manipulation, there were exactly 71 million Legion Merit Jade slip in each of them. After obtaining the Shadow Essence, Long Yu was somewhat surprised. He held the Shadow Essence in his hand, feeling the extremely pure divine shadow, rune energy within it. He was somewhat excited, but he didn't leave immediately after obtaining the Shadow Essence like Tian Qingxue. On one hand, his state of mind was much more stable than Tian Qingxue's. On the other hand, he still had to stay here and wait for the next batch of Soul Ascension wine. Although he had basically used up all of his Legion Merit Jade slip, Moon Song and Red Oriole still had more than 10 million each, and Long Yu still had 7 million. If the price was right, he would still be able to get 1 or 2 bottles of Soul Ascension wine. At this time, Long Yu turned his head and glanced at the black-clothed assassin. He found that the assassin's eyes were unfathomable, and he didn't know what he was thinking. But anyway, it didn't have much to do with Long Yu. The people around also began to discuss in private about the 2 auctions. Long Yu was the main character of the 2 auctions, so he obviously became the focus of everyone's attention. What was strange was that every time Long Yu appeared in the Demigod College, he would become the focus of everyone, even when he took out the Frost Essence to auction the first time he came, which caused the Imperial Wind faction and the Frost faction to fight each other. This fellow seemed to be able to stir up a storm wherever he went, causing a place to become restless. After the 2 auctions, the official products of the Demigod College were finally going to be delivered. As everyone raised their heads in anticipation, a familiar figure gradually walked in from outside the hall. It was the person in charge of the Demigod College, Demigod Gaudi. Demigod Gaudi was an expert of the Heavenly Bat Demon Clan. She was usually in charge of the entire Demigod College, including the products being put on the shelves right now. There were very few people in the Demigod College in the first place. Apart from Demigod Gaudy and other students, there were only a few staff members who were usually responsible for the construction of the Demigod College and the distribution of missions. There were very few of them, and they rarely appeared in front of other students, so they were quite mysterious. The thing that everyone has been waiting for is finally here. First, the divine liquor. This time, the Demigod College's brewery has selected a total of 13 bottles of divine liquor, which is one bottle more than the previous 6 months. Demigod Gaudy walked over with a bottle of divine liquor in his hand. He walked into the crowd with a smile. Now, let's start bidding for the divine liquor. The basic price is 2 million per bottle. The highest bidder wins, said Demigod Gaudy as he raised his hand and took out the 13 bottles of divine liquor that were kept in his small world. He then let the 13 bottles float in midair. The 13 bottles of divine liquor were originally priced at 2 million battlefield honor points per bottle, which was basically the reward that a student received for completing a mission. Usually, only the relatively young cultivators or the guys who had just grasped the new power of the divine symbols would need the divine liquor. Therefore, even in the Demigod College, it was not guaranteed that all of them would be sold out. So, the original price of the divine liquor is 2 million. Long Yu knew that when he and Red Oriole first came to the Demigod College half a year ago, because there were not many new students, there was still some leftover divine liquor, and he bought a lot of it. Now, the starting price of the divine liquor was 2 million, which was undoubtedly good news for Long Yu. Maybe he could even buy a lot of the divine liquor. Everyone present was allowed to make a bid for each bottle of wine. Only when no one made a bid would the auction of the 13 bottles of wine come to an end. Chapter 1439. At the start, Long Yu, Moonsong, and Red Oriole didn't even think about it. They immediately marked every bottle of Godhood wine on the auction floor. Each of them took out 10 million merit points, and each of them was worth 2 million. In total, they marked 10 bottles. Long Yu used the remaining 7 million merit points to mark 3 bottles with 6 million merit points. Of course, they were the first to mark the bottles, but they weren't the last to be able to buy them. Before long, more and more Godhood wine was marked. For example, the 3 bottles of Godhood wine that Long Yu had his eyes on were marked at 2 million, 2 million, and 3 million merit points respectively. Furthermore, the price was still climbing, and it didn't take long for it to reach 3 million merit points. That was a relatively cheap price. Long Yu thought back to when he had first come to the Demigod Institute. The remaining Godhood wine had been worth 4 million merit points per bottle. That meant that the average price of a bottle had been 4 million merit points per bottle. It was worth noting that the price of the Godhood wine could be revoked. Once it was revoked, the merit points would be returned to the owner, and the original price of the Godhood wine would become the original price. That explained why Long Yu had been able to buy so many bottles of Godhood wine when he had first arrived. Now that the competition for the Godhood wine was even fiercer, the final price would probably be even higher. Long Yu had 7 million Legion merit points, so he would definitely be able to bid for a bottle of soul-connecting wine. However, it would be very difficult for him to bid for 2 bottles. At that point, Red Oriole snuck up to Long Yu and transferred 3 million merit points to him. 10 million. That should be enough to get 2 bottles of Godhood wine. I still have 10 million left, so I can give them to you first. Red Oriole looked at Long Yu and said, I don't have any more powers that I need to comprehend. The most important thing right now is to cultivate the high-grade, unbounded martial skill, the Binding Demon Shadow. Therefore, you should focus on that as soon as possible. Long Yu didn't refuse Red Oriole's good intentions. After all, the two of them were already inseparable, and there were many things that they would naturally think of for the other. Now that Red Oriole no longer needed the Soul Ascension wine, it was only natural that she would let Long Yu bid for it. And I thought of a pretty good way to practice martial skills. I'll tell you about it later. Long Yu recalled how he had suppressed his cultivation to fight with the weaker cultivators in the pocket world. He had relied on this to cultivate his martial skills. The effects were not bad, so he planned to teach this method to Red Oriole. Red Oriole nodded, then left to continue marking the prices of the divine wine. 4 million. Soon, the price of all the divine ascension wine had reached this amount. Up until now, not a single bottle of divine ascension wine had been withdrawn. This meant that if the price was 4 million, all of the divine ascension wine would be sold. As expected, the competition was much stronger than it had been half a year ago. After all, there were two rookies, Long Yu and Red Oriole, who had invested a lot of assets. 2 million. Long Yu looked at the situation and marked 2 of the divine ascension wine with his price. In a short period of time, no one came to raise the price of the 2 bottles of divine ascension wine. Not long after, the price of the 13 bottles of divine ascension wine had been raised to 2 million. Then, the price of some of the divine ascension wine had been raised to 3 million. At this point, some people began to withdraw the price. 2 bottles of divine ascension wine were left empty, and the price of the 2 bottles of divine ascension wine was 3 million. Obviously, some people did not want them anymore, or they did not have enough funds, so they used them to compete for the other bottles. In one breath, Long Yu marked the price of the 2 bottles of divine ascension wine that he had his eyes on at 5 million. Compared to the value of the divine ascension wine itself, this price was already relatively high. Therefore, the price stopped at this point. There were 2 bottles worth 6 million. 4.5 million, 7 bottles. There were also 4 bottles at 4 million. In the end, there was not a single empty bottle. All of them had been participated in the bidding. It seemed that after this auction, there would not be any divine ascension wine left in the shop of the Demigod College. In the end, it was sold. Long Yu, Red Oriole, and Moonsong got 2, 2, and 3 bottles of divine ascension wine respectively. Moonsong did not need to comprehend any power in the first place. She was participating in the auction only to help Long Yu obtain divine ascension wine. She and Red Oriole both knew that Long Yu had not fully comprehended many powers yet. If he could fully comprehend those powers, Long Yu's strength would increase a lot. And this was because Long Yu had given the jade slip of the 9 firmament star flash to Moonsong. Moonsong was very touched, especially when she saw that Tian Qingshue's high-grade, unbounded level martial skill had been sold for more than 40 million. She felt that it was difficult to repay Long Yu's efforts. Therefore, the 3 bottles of divine ascension wine were equivalent to a thank you gift. To be honest, the 3 bottles of divine ascension wine were very important to Long Yu. Now that there were 7 bottles of divine ascension wine, it would at least save Long Yu 2 years of comprehending the various powers. 1 bottle of divine ascension wine could save 100 days of comprehending a power. 7 bottles would save 700 days. After the transaction, Long Yu did not have many battlefield merit points left. Even Red Oriole and Moonsong did not have much left. Fortunately, their speed of completing missions would increase, and the speed at which they earned battlefield merit points would also increase. The 7 bottles of divine ascension wine were handed over to Long Yu. This scene was seen by the black-robed assassin not far away, and he couldn't help but sneer. Buying 7 bottles of divine ascension wine all by yourself? How generous. Unfortunately, who doesn't know that the effects of divine ascension wine will gradually weaken like pills? That's right. The effects of divine ascension wine would weaken. This was something Long Yu had learned when he drank the divine ascension wine, but he didn't care about it. After all, he was a man who cultivated the devil dust heart. As long as he used the devil dust heart, this martial arts secret method, to completely regenerate his fleshly body, then the side effects caused by drinking the heavenly spirit wine would completely disappear. This was exactly the same as the side effects of medicinal pills. That was why Long Yu was so dependent on the effects of the divine ascension wine. If it were anyone else, they really wouldn't need so much divine ascension wine. Hearing the black-robed assassin's words, the demigod Gaudi also smiled. That's right, Long Yu. The effects of divine ascension wine will continuously weaken when a person drinks it alone. If I remember correctly, you've already bought quite a few bottles of divine ascension wine. If you drink more, I'm afraid the effects won't be as good as you think. This was also why the competition for the divine ascension wine was not particularly fierce. It was because the effects of other people's divine ascension wine would gradually weaken, and after the fourth bottle, the effects would become very limited. Most of the experts from the demigod academies present had already used that much divine ascension wine. Nobody could possibly know what kind of heaven-defying effect the devil dust heart that Long Yu was cultivating right now was. Only Red Oriole knew this. Even Moon Song did not know much about it. Although she knew that Long Yu had some tricks up his sleeve, she did not know them so clearly. Therefore, Moon Song was a little curious about Long Yu's demand for so much divine ascension wine. However, since Long Yu wanted it, she would not say anything. After all, she knew that Long Yu had too many secrets. If he wanted to know every single one of them, she would definitely die of curiosity. Thank you for your concern, Senior, but I know what I'm doing. Long Yu smiled at the gaudy demigod. Then he stepped aside with Red Oriole and Moon Song, indicating that they would not participate in the following bidding. The gaudy demigod did not pay too much attention to Long Yu. Instead, he went on to show the other goods. Along with the new batch of divine ascension wine, there were many other precious items. For example, the level 2 heavenly crystal level creation item that the gaudy demigod took out next. Generally speaking, level 3 heavenly crystal level creation items would only appear on the market, which required 5 million battlefield merit points to exchange for. It was clearly priced in the battlefield legions. However, level 2 heavenly crystal level creation items were extremely hard to come by. They would not be taken out for sale in the battlefield legions easily. That was because level 2 heavenly crystal level creation items not only contained 5 times the power of creation of level 3 heavenly crystal level creation items, but they also had all kinds of different special effects. For example, the special effect of the level 2 heavenly crystal item that the demigod Ostentatious took out was that the natural recovery speed of his body strength would be doubled in the following month after he absorbed the power inside. What did this special effect mean for most people? It meant that their odds of survival in a critical moment would be greatly increased. For the people of the demigod academies, in particular, such an effect sometimes meant that they would have an extra life. Most of the time, when training in the territories of foreign races, the consumption of power was a very serious part of the process, which greatly affected their efficiency in completing the training. Sometimes, it could even decide their life or death. Apart from the level 2 heavenly crystal level creation item, the gaudy demigod also brought some infinity level fighters. Of course, those that could catch the attention of the demigod academies had to be supreme infinity level fighters. High-grade infinity level fighters were a bit too low-grade, but ultra-grade infinity level fighters were not so easy to obtain. Even the demigod academies did not have many of them. In addition, there were some special elixirs, low-grade infinity level martial arts techniques, and so on. In the end, Long Yu did not find anything useful to him. So, he was ready to leave the hall with Red Oriole and Moon Song, Shadow Essence, and 7 bottles of soul-connecting wine. That was Long Yu's harvest this time. When he left with the 2 girls, the black-clothed young man of the slaughter squad looked at him with some confusion in his eyes. Clearly, he could not understand why Yi Futian wanted so much soul-connecting wine. However, it was impossible for him to follow Long Yu to ask. Shadow Essence, more than 70 million, and he bought it without even blinking. This kid is interesting. The black-clothed assassin thought of when he was just a level 1 sovereign. Not to mention 70 million. Even 7 million battlefield army merit was a huge sum. How could he be as extravagant as Long Yu was? Chapter 1440. More importantly, Long Yu was able to get Red Oriole and Moon Song's help and buy 7 bottles of divine ascension wine. What was he going to do with so many bottles of divine ascension wine? The assassin in black couldn't figure it out, but just like Long Yu couldn't figure out why this guy was targeting him. The two of them wouldn't have a deeper understanding of each other unless they had further contact. Obviously, Long Yu wasn't too interested in understanding the assassin in black. After obtaining the Shadow Essence and the 7 bottles of Divine Ascension wine, he left with Moon Song and Red Oriole. He couldn't wait to find out what would happen after the Shadow Essence fused with his innate techniques. The innate technique that Long Yu used the most at the moment was undoubtedly the 5th one, the Book of Shadows. This innate technique could allow the Book of Shadows to simulate any substance or even energy and then transform Long Yu into that substance or energy. This innate technique would greatly improve Long Yu's overall combat ability. Without this innate technique, his combat ability would definitely drop to a lower level. The key was that his hiding and life-saving abilities had been strengthened by several times because of this technique. Even when he turned into nothingness, only demigods could detect his traces and aura. The only limitation of turning into nothingness was that it consumed too much energy. He couldn't maintain it for long when he was alone, or he would need to consume a lot of pills to maintain it. Let's fuse the Shadow Essence with the Book of Shadows first and see what happens. Long Yu thought to himself. In fact, if the Shadow Essence was fused with other innate techniques, Long Yu would have one more innate technique that he could use frequently. For example, the Hand of the 9 Underworlds, Dragon Breath of the 9 Underworlds, and so on. If they were to be infused with the Shadow Essence, they would definitely become another innate divine ability with special effects just like the Path of the 9 Underworlds, which would come in handy at certain times. However, what Long Yu was thinking was that the Book of Shadows' most important innate mystique had yet to reach its peak. He had to reach the peak of the Book of Shadows first before considering improving the others. No matter what, he would go back and fuse the Shadow Essence into it. It wouldn't be too late to see what effect it would have. In fact, the Shadow Essence seemed to be extracted after being fused. If the effect wasn't good, Long Yu could extract the Shadow Essence and fuse it into other innate mystiques. The Space Essence in the 9 Nether Path wasn't suitable for other divine abilities. Among Long Yu's 7 innate divine abilities, only the 9 Nether Path contained some space power, which could transform because of the Space Essence. Soon, Long Yu bid farewell to Moon Song and Red Oriole. They went back to work on their high-grade, unbounded techniques, while Long Yu prepared to improve his own strength. Let's use the Shadow Essence first. Putting the 7 bottles of Divine Transcendence wine aside, Long Yu took out the Shadow Essence and sent it into his own minor world inside the 9 Nether Prison Steel. Then, Long Yu placed the Shadow Essence next to the innate mystique fruit of the Book of Shadows. Within the pocket dimension, the Book of Shadows appeared as a pitch-black page. This page was closed, and only when it was in use would one of the pages open. Without any hesitation, Long Yu threw the Shadow Essence into the Book of Shadows and quickly fused it with it. The Book of Shadows was gradually undergoing some mysterious changes. Long Yu could feel any changes in his miniature world. He saw that the Book of Shadows was actually gradually flipping open in the dense darkness. This was unprecedented. In the past, Long Yu would only flip open when he used the Book of Shadows. But now, Long Yu didn't even need to use the Book of Shadows, and the page had already flipped open. Most importantly, the page that was flipped open seemed to be a page that had never been flipped open before. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. He discovered that the page that was flipped open actually had the appearance of a sinister black dragon. Long Yu had seen this appearance too many times. Wasn't this the appearance of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor? The page has the appearance of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. Doesn't that mean that I can transform into the appearance of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor? Long Yu didn't expect that the Book of Shadows would undergo such a change after fusing with the Shadow Essence. More importantly, what was the use of such a change? Long Yu thought to himself as he patiently waited for the Shadow Essence to completely fuse with the Book of Shadows. He discovered that after the Shadow Essence was fused, the Book of Shadows flipped open a few more pages. The first page was about the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. The following pages were about creatures or existences that he had never seen before. He could try to transform into them one by one. What was the use of transforming into these creatures or existences? Finally done. Let's try it out now. Long Yu thought to himself. Then, with a look of anticipation in his eyes, he activated the innate mystique, the Book of Shadows, and suddenly transformed into a pitch-black divine dragon. The appearance of the Juyo Dragon Emperor appeared in Long Yu's small world. This Juyo Dragon Emperor's body was exactly the same as the Juyo Dragon Emperor's main body that was trapped in the ancient ruins of the multi-winged race. The only difference was that this body was slightly illusory. Very soon, Long Yu discovered that in this state, the power of using the Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine text actually doubled. Moreover, he could also use the 7 great innate mystiques of the Juyo Dragon Emperor. Sea of Deathly Aura, 9 Dark Moons, Dragon Burial Ground. Wait a minute. A total of 7 great innate mystiques could be used by Long Yu now. Moreover, their power was many times stronger than his own innate mystique. However, I now have the Fighting Celestial Body technique. In normal battles, I will still use the Fighting Celestial Body technique and the Boundless Grasp at most. Although transforming into the Juyo Dragon Emperor is stronger than my initial strength. If I stack the Fighting Celestial Body technique by more than 50 times, it will still surpass the power of the Juyo Dragon Emperor transformation. Long Yu thought to himself, it was a pity. In this case, would the Juyo Dragon Emperor transformation have no effect? He was not in a hurry to transform back. Instead, he began to sense the changes after transforming into the Juyo Dragon Emperor. Soon, he made a surprising discovery. Heaven-defying, too heaven-defying. Long Yu just felt a little and found that in this state, the speed at which he comprehended the Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine text was more than twice as fast as usual. Not only the Revelation Level 9 Nether Divine text, but also the 4 deadly prison of the Juyo Dragon Emperor, the Devil Dust Heart, and other means. In this state, Long Yu's speed of comprehension had more than doubled. Among them, the Devil Dust Heart secret technique, Long Yu had already cultivated to the 5th realm. If it was not like this now, he would have to rely on absorbing enough heaven and earth spiritual chi to improve, or rely on his martial arts talent to continue to comprehend. It would take time to comprehend by himself, but could also save some heaven and earth spiritual chi. If it was Long Yu comprehending by himself, it would take at least a year to comprehend the Devil Dust Heart to the 6th realm. But now, it would only take 3 to 4 months. This time was still too long. Therefore, for Long Yu, it was not a good way to comprehend the martial arts secret technique by himself. But the key was still the 4 deadly prison. The 4 deadly prison. Regarding this ancient God-forbidden technique, Long Yu had never stopped studying it, but he did not have much of a breakthrough. Now that he had transformed into the Juyo Dragon Emperor, the speed at which he comprehended the 4 deadly prison had increased by several times. The main reason was that the Juyo Dragon Emperor had already comprehended a lot of this ancient God-forbidden technique and cultivated it to a certain level. Now that Long Yu was in such a state, the speed at which he comprehended the ancient God-forbidden technique naturally increased by a lot. According to this situation, in less than 3 months, Long Yu's comprehension of the 4 deadly prison would have a qualitative breakthrough. If he used it again, the 4 deadly prison would gradually become his killer move. Of course, the current Long Yu did not know much about the 4 deadly prison. He had not seen what the 4 deadly prison would look like after it was formed. Now that he had transformed into the Juyo Dragon Emperor, if he used the 4 deadly prison, it would only be at the level that Long Yu had comprehended. He could only condense some lines of death to entangle the opponent and then corrode the opponent with the aura of death. At this level, the lethality was not too strong. Long Yu was too lazy to use it. If he wanted to use it next time, he would have to increase its power by at least 10 times. After all, it was an ancient God-forbidden technique. The difficulty in cultivating it was too high. However, if he could cultivate it to its peak, its power would definitely surpass all other martial arts techniques. Regarding this, Long Yu was looking forward to it. Let's look at other things. Long Yu thought of something and flipped to the next page of the Book of Dark Shadows. The creature on this page was an ice god. This ice god was different from the ice god that Long Yu had scanned before. It was an ice god in the demigod realm. In terms of level, the level of this ice god was probably comparable to the level of the Joyo Dragon Emperor. It could definitely be said to be the strongest in the ice god race. With a thought from Long Yu, he transformed into an ice god. From the outside, he didn't look any different from an ordinary ice god. If he ran to the territory of the ice god race like this, would he be regarded as the leader of the ice god race? Long Yu was a little embarrassed. However, after he transformed into an ice god, he also had a wonderful feeling. In this state, his speed of comprehending the ice attribute divine text had increased by a lot. The speed of comprehending the divine text had increased by at least 3 times. It was a pity that Long Yu did not comprehend any ice attribute divine text. Therefore, this function did not seem to be of much use. In this state, Long Yu could also use 7 other innate techniques, which were all condensed from the power of the ice attribute divine text. It was a pity that Long Yu did not have much understanding of the ice attribute divine text, nor did he cultivate or comprehend them. Therefore, in this state, the 7 innate techniques of the ice god race were basically not very powerful. He might not even be able to defeat an expert of the same level, let alone challenge someone of a higher level. Chapter 1441. Long Yu was quite happy about this situation. He didn't expect the Book of Shadows to have such a function. Obviously, it was most useful to fuse the shadow essence into the Book of Shadows for the time being. After all, he was still in the growth period. If he wanted to cultivate or comprehend something, he could temporarily transform into the corresponding appearance. Very soon, he flipped through the pages of the book and found a strange-looking creature. This creature was made of bones, and it was a bit similar to the bone race. However, the difference was that this creature's body was a huge skeleton, and there were many white fangs on this huge skeleton. The reason why Long Yu noticed this creature was because he discovered that this creature's body contained Berserker divine runes. If he transformed into this ghastly skeleton creature, the speed at which he comprehended the various Berserker attribute divine runes would be much faster. Of course, what was restricting Long Yu from using the Berserker celestial body wasn't because the Berserker divine text he comprehended was too weak, but because he didn't have the power of other Berserker divine text for him to comprehend. If he could comprehend a stronger Berserker divine text, or improve his compatibility with the Berserker divine text, the power of Long Yu's Berserker celestial body would be at least 10 times stronger. By then, Long Yu could almost be said to have reached a temporary peak. However, that level was still a little far from the current Long Yu. At least, to improve his compatibility with the Berserker divine text, he needed a lot of special elixirs. Long Yu had been observing these special elixirs on a daily basis, but he didn't see them. There were a lot of special elixirs in the shops of the Demigod College, but none of them could improve the compatibility with the Berserker divine text. There were other special elixirs that could improve the compatibility with the Shadow Attribute Divine Text, but Long Yu didn't need such elixirs anymore, because his compatibility with the Shadow Attribute Divine Text had already reached the peak of the 12th level. As for the Berserker Divine Text, he was only at the 7th level. The gap was a little big, so he couldn't display the strongest power of the Berserker celestial body. Long Yu shook his head and focused his attention on what was in front of him. After the Book of Shadows fused with the Shadow Essence, the effect was obviously beyond his expectations. It could actually allow him to transform into 8 different creatures, and basically, each creature represented a divine text attribute, so that he could cultivate and comprehend the divine text of that attribute a little faster. Moreover, when Long Yu tried to turn into nothingness again, he found that it consumed almost 10 times less energy than before. This was because no matter what he transformed into, including when he transformed into nothingness, the majority of the energy he consumed was absorbed from the shadow essence. The shadow essence constantly absorbed energy from the surrounding space and stored it. It was completely capable of storing enough energy to support Long Yu, at least in a battle, so he wouldn't run out of energy. This was also very good news for Long Yu. It also meant that he didn't need to be careful to turn into nothingness. In battle, if he could turn into nothingness endlessly, his hiding, escape, and assassination abilities would reach another level. Without a doubt, this shadow essence that Long Yu bought was very worth it. After all, he was going to drink the divine wine to quickly improve the various powers he comprehended. He just didn't know if the acceleration and comprehension of the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text would be stacked with the effects of the divine wine if he transformed into the Joyo Dragon Emperor. If he thought about it, he would give a try. Without any hesitation, Long Yu chose to self-destruct his body first, and then use the Devil Dust Heart to reconstruct his body, eliminating the weakening effects of drinking the divine wine before starting to drink the divine wine. This wasn't the first time he drank the divine wine, so he was prepared for the effects of the divine wine. As the drunkenness in his mind increased, the speed at which he comprehended Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text and metal elemental power also began to increase. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, when the speed at which he comprehended the 9 Nether Divine text increased by more than 10 times, his whole body was no longer sober. Even the pure world body had no effect because the drunkenness of the divine wine was not harmful. This also rang an alarm bell for Long Yu. In the future, he might encounter some opponents who specially used the method of drunkenness to achieve the effect of controlling the opponent. In this case, the pure world body might lose its effect very quickly. Long Yu lost consciousness, and he passed out completely from being drunk. However, at this time, the effect of the divine wine finally came into play. In addition, now that Long Yu was in the form of the Joyo Dragon Emperor, the speed at which he comprehended Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text had more than doubled. In other words, the effect of the divine wine had suddenly doubled for Long Yu. This situation was already discovered by Long Yu before he passed out, so he fell asleep with peace of mind. Next, he only needed to wait for a day to wake up and see the effect of drinking this bottle of divine wine. A day later, Long Yu slowly woke up. The first thing he did was check his comprehension of the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text. The results made him very happy. This time, it only took him a day to comprehend the 9 Nether Divine text, but the effect was equivalent to 8 months of normal cultivation. This made Long Yu very happy. Obviously, after transforming into the form of the Joyo Dragon Emperor, the speed of cultivation of the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text had increased, and the effect of the divine wine could be accumulated. This made drinking a bottle of divine wine equivalent to 8 months of cultivation for Long Yu. In just a day, Long Yu's comprehension of the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text had increased from 60% to nearly 70%. At this rate, it was possible to completely comprehend the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text with the help of these 6 bottles of divine wine. Long Yu did not stop at all. After all, Moonsong and Red Oriole were still waiting for him to finish here, so they could go out together to complete the Academy's training mission. So he had to be quick. Another self-explosion, another reconstruction of the physical body, and then drink the divine wine. Long Yu was very familiar with this kind of thing. Continuous self-explosion, continuous rebirth, and drinking the divine wine. As the days passed, the divine wine became less and less, but Long Yu's comprehension of the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text increased. About 10 days later, Long Yu finally finished all 7 bottles of divine wine. Long Yu used all the heavenly connecting wine to cultivate the Revelation level 9 Nether Divine text. This time, he finally got what he wanted and comprehended 100% of the Revelation level 9 Nether Divine text, reaching the level of complete comprehension. After fully comprehending the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text, Long Yu's entire body had been reborn. He casually raised his hand, and the Prophet level 9 Nether Divine text appeared. When he used any shadow-type techniques, his power was greatly increased. Originally, he had comprehended 60% of the prophet level 9 Nether Divine text, which increased the power of his techniques by 6 times. Now that he had fully comprehended it, his power had increased by 20 times. This was the effect of complete comprehension. It wasn't a 10-fold increase, but a 20-fold increase. This meant that in a short period of 10 days, Long Yu's strength had once again rapidly increased. It was almost equivalent to advancing by 1 level in the martial Dao. Although he was currently only a first-rank Great Ruler, his combat strength could actually reach the level of a 4th or even 5th-rank Great Ruler. In fact, if he stacked the Berserk heavenly power to more than 100 levels, he might be able to deal with an ordinary 6th-rank Great Ruler. There was no suspense. His current strength was not far off from Moonsong, who was originally a 3rd-rank Great Ruler. One had to know that Moonsong was a student of the Demigod Academy. She was a super genius who could fight above her level. Yet, Long Yu was able to fight above his level. There were not many people with such strength in the entire human race and demon race territory. Long Yu did not hesitate. He checked his status again and discovered that he had also comprehended a lot of metal-type Genesis power. Because his small world had merged with the metal-type heaven spiritual source, he could naturally comprehend metal-type Genesis power. Although the automatic comprehension effect brought by the metal elemental heavenly spirit source had weakened a lot after reaching 30%, the 7 bottles of heavenly spirit wine he had just drunk added up to 56 months of cultivation. That was more than 4 years of time. No matter how weak the automatic comprehension effect was, after such a long period of time, the effect was still extremely heaven-defying. From 30% of the metal elemental primordial power comprehension, it directly increased to 50% of the metal elemental primordial power comprehension. Increasing the metal-type Genesis power could also increase the power of the 9 Netherworld's divine characters. This increase from 30% to 50% could increase the power of the 9 Netherworld's divine characters by quite a bit. At the very least, it could double the power of the 9 Netherworld's divine characters. In these short 10 days, Long Yu's speed of improvement was simply too fast. At this time, Long Yu did not immediately leave his small world to meet up with Moonsong and Red Oriole. This was because he had other things to do. He had to enter the core space of the 9 Netherworld's prison tablet and memorize the remaining mysterious patterns of the pure world physique in his mind. Long Yu had already memorized a portion of those mysterious patterns. Originally, there were 22 mysterious patterns of the 7th level, but there were still more than 10 that he had not memorized. Originally, it would take Long Yu around 2 days to memorize one mysterious pattern of the 7th level in his mind. But now, Long Yu had entered the first level of the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet. After giving it a try, he discovered that if he wanted to inscribe the 7th level of the mysterious pattern, he only needed 4 hours, which was 10 times faster. This should be because I have completely comprehended the revelation level 9th Nether Divine text. Long Yu thought to himself. He was in a good mood. Since that was the case, he naturally began to imprint these mysterious patterns in his mind. In another 2 days, he would be able to completely memorize the mysterious patterns of the 7th level. As for whether he should continue to imprint the mysterious patterns of the 8th and 9th level, he would see when the time came. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.